The action takes place somewhere in Africa, where war and chaos are raging, where every quiet corner can become a war zone at any moment. An area filled with smoke and horror of war, there were loud explosions all around, everything was blazing with bright flames. The clouds of smoke were enormous, wooden debris from houses and other structures flew in all directions. The fire caused by the explosions quickly grew in all directions, human silhouettes were visible on the horizon. The soldier was carrying his wounded comrade, the blonde walking behind them screamed for him to move faster. She looked excitedly at the wounded soldier, telling him to hold on, because they had the best military doctor, and he should be able to save him. If there is a person in the world that can free someone from the death god's grasp, it must be him. Meanwhile, in a military hospital, a doctor was performing an operation. He asked the nurse for styptics to wipe his sweat. The military reached the military hospital, where the wounded man was to be treated. It was a hot day. An agitated blonde screamed for the doctor to help, saying that this patient had a left-sided gunshot wound to the chest. The doctor turned his cool gaze to the patient. After examining him, it became known that the patient had no signs of life. He told the girl that he forgives her this time, but for the future it is worth remembering that with such patients he should give up, because he cannot be saved. The girl immediately indignantly asked how he could talk like that and break the Hippocratic oath. The doctor continued to operate on the man, saying that it was all because they were on the battlefield. The blonde looked at her comrade, who had already died. Tears began to flow from her eyes. She told the doctor that she would report his behavior to the International Red Cross and force them to send him back to his homeland. The doctor told her that she could do whatever she wanted. Even though he was a doctor, he was also a soldier and the Red Cross had no power over him. Suddenly, a military man entered the room carrying a comrade. She loudly asked, "Who is the doctor here?" Seeing a man in a white coat, he said that he must be the doctor. The doctor turned his attention to him. The military man asked him to save the captain of their squadron. The doctor looked at him angrily. He asked in a calm tone, "This must be the first time for a military man to be in this place too?" While sewing up the skin of a wounded man, he asked if he, too, didn't know the local rules. The soldier was very nervous. Taking the gun out of its holster, he asked, "Who even cares about the rules?" With a sharp movement the gun was pointed at the doctor's head. He was ordered to save the captain, otherwise he would be killed. The charming blonde covered her mouth in extreme anxiety. She didn't know what to expect. The doctor cleared his throat and asked him to warn the military man, saying that he shouldn't cause them trouble. The evil military man did not listen to him and told him to immediately save the captain or be killed. The doctor did not give in to his provocations. A pistol shot was fired immediately. The bullet flew right in front of the doctor's face. This act greatly outraged him. He broke away from the operation, telling the military man that he forced him to do it. Moving away from the couch, he swung his leg at a man in military uniform, knocking the pistol out of his hands. His foot hit him right in the head. The military man was completely bewildered and could not even resist. The pistol, knocked out of his hands, flew in the other direction. The blonde was very scared and watched all this. The surprise and fear in her eyes were indescribable. She stood in a stupor and watched the doctor's actions. The force of the blow threw the soldier into the air. The girl couldn't believe her own eyes. A few seconds later the soldier crashed into a brick wall. Upon landing, he was already unconscious. The beaten man's two comrades became angry. They asked the doctor if he was really looking for death. The doctor only looked into the eyes of one of the men with anger and fearlessness. He didn't say a word. The angry soldier swung his right fist at the doctor, loudly declaring that today he would lose his life. But the clever doctor immediately dodged and managed to intercept the man's hand during the blow, while punching him in the jaw. The last military man watched everything in complete bewilderment. He couldn't see everything that was happening. The clever doctor decided not to waste time and take advantage of the military stupor. He bent his knee slightly. A moment later, he made a sharp turn with his body, striking his opponent with his right leg. The brick wall was broken by the arrival of 3 military men. All 3 were unconscious. The doctor took the medical needle in his hands and decided to continue stitching the skin of the wounded patient. He told the nurse in a serious tone that the operation was ongoing. The girl obeyed the doctor. The blonde held her chest, telling herself that this man was very strong, like the devil himself in the flesh. It was already evening outside. The sun began to slowly set behind the horizon, and the operation continued. After some time, the doctor took off his mask and calmly exhaled. It was evening outside. He said that the operation was a success, thanking everyone present for their hard work. The charming blonde was very worried. She realized that she seemed to have fallen in love with the doctor. The doctor sternly said that they did not have enough people, and asked to take the patient out of here, since it was already time for them to begin the next operation. The sun was setting outside, the sunset was beautiful and mesmerizing, a light wind blew through the leaves, the operation continued in the tent. On an iron tray are surgical instruments that the doctor used to perform operations. After a long time, the tired doctor finally took off his mask. The weariness in his eyes was clearly emphasized. He said wearily that it took 3 hours, but the operation was successful. The doctor finally decided to leave the tent. The doctor saw a blonde sitting on a log, warming herself by the fire. It was already night outside, but the stars brightly illuminated the earth. The tired doctor decided to approach the girl in order to talk to her. With quiet steps he walked towards her. A few seconds later he walked up to Catherine and asked her what happened and if everything was okay. The girl asked for forgiveness, saying that the dead cannot be revived, and this is a battlefield where time is a luxury and cannot be wasted. Wang lit a cigarette and asked her to forget about it, saying that he had been through it. The girl was forgiven. Catherine told herself that he was very handsome. Van smiled with a cigarette in his mouth, asking the girl if he was really that handsome. Catherine was very embarrassed. She barely found the words to ask for forgiveness, saying that she had behaved quite rudely. The girl smiled sweetly at the doctor and asked if he admired her beauty and figure. Van continued to smoke and told her that she had the right figure, especially her wonderful hips. Such compliments from Dr. Wang excited the charming Catherine. She smiled admiringly and realized that she had a chance. She pressed herself close to the doctor, asking if he could only admire her wonderful hips. Van asked if she was teasing him. Catherine replied that she didn't mind being with him, because he was handsome and cool. The only question is, will he dare? The doctor smiled seductively at the girl, saying that in this case, she would regret it. Sweet Catherine immediately jumped into Van's arms. The girl felt love and warmth from him. The guy immediately began to run. He said that his camp was nearby and asked how about 300 rounds. Having reached the camp, the couple began to enjoy each other in the tent. It was deep night. An hour of pleasure has passed. The nervous doctor asked the blonde if this was her first time. Catherine asked slightly indignantly, "Are all Western women really sluts in the eyes of Chinese men?" Wang stroked her cheek and said that she had misunderstood and he just thought that such a beauty must have many admirers. The cute blonde felt warm and immediately became kinder. Her sweet smile seemed to shine. The girl was in a playful mood. She immediately rolled over to get on top of the guy. The girl made the guy very excited. She had snow-white and very delicate skin. She asked the guy, being the man who took her the first time, if he wanted to know who she really was. Wang asked if she wasn't just an ordinary Red Cross volunteer who went to the battlefield to see the world. Playful Catherine asked what would he think of her if she said that she was a princess of Denmark who had run away from marriage. To the young man her words seemed absurd. He laughed and said that she knew how to make a good joke. The girl said that she was not joking and was the princess of Denmark, and she was supposed to enter into a political marriage, but she did not like the prince and ran away. Dr. Wang listened carefully to the blonde sitting on him. He became very nervous after her words. He asked her if she was serious about all this. The girl ran her finger over his pumped-up body. Catherine opened her mouth and asked in a calm tone if the young man was really scared. Van scratched the back of his head and laughed, asking the girl how could he even be scared. The young doctor stroked the cute blonde, saying that it was already late, and suggested she go to bed. Catherine agreed with him. The young couple quickly fell asleep. It was already light outside. A light morning breeze blew through the leaves. Blonde Catherine slept soundly with a smile on her face. She hugged the pillow with a photo of Dr. Wang taped to it. The girl immediately sensed something was wrong. She woke up and began to come to her senses. After a few seconds it became clear that it was a pillow, not a person. She immediately became agitated, because she did not understand where her lover had gone. She screamed, "How dare that degenerate Wang Yu leave her and quietly sneak away." The charming blonde Catherine began to grind her teeth and smiled insidiously. She seemed to be planning something. She said out loud, "Did he really think he could get rid of her so easily?" The girl smiled slyly. Meanwhile, the sun was shining brightly over the headquarters of the Chinese peacekeeping force. There was flying military equipment on the site. Wang Yu told Old Man Li that he didn't care how, but he needed a vacation because he needed to go home immediately. An elderly military man sat in a chair and silently thought. He chose words to answer the young man. Li asked why he decided to return now, because when he had previously tried to send him home, he refused to go. Van told him that it was none of his business, and in short, all he wanted was to go home. The elderly soldier continued to think, and suddenly he said that this could be done without any problems. But he said that if the young man wanted to return home, he must complete the task assigned to him. Wang asked the old man, "Isn't this just a blind date?" He used to be afraid of him, but now he's not the least bit afraid. He immediately said to himself, what could be more terrible than the Princess of Denmark? Catherine couldn't get out of his head. Old Li told the young man that he thought he had met something worse than a blind date. Wang Yu scratched the back of his head and asked him to stop talking nonsense and not complain if the girl didn't like him. Li said that he was taking it too lightly, because what girl wouldn't fall in love with a handsome guy like him? Yu told the old man that his most attractive feature was his inner world. He asked him to go get ready, since he had decided to return. Wang Yu, with a smile on his face and a spark of happiness in his eyes, obeyed his order from his superior. Old Man Li said to himself that he and his father were comrades during life, and he entrusted it to him. Catherine is a good girl and fully worthy of him. He thoughtfully watched the young man, distraught with joy, who was glad that he would soon go home. Standing in the doorway, Wang Yu said goodbye and thanked Old Man Li for everything. He had a wide smile on his face. A few seconds later the door slammed loudly. The young man left the room and began to head towards the exit. But as soon as he closed the door, the smile disappeared from his face. He began to nervously walk towards the exit. He was indignant, and his face was extremely dissatisfied. Wang called Li an old fox. 2 days have passed. It was a sunny day. Wang Yu adjusted his sunglasses as he got off the plane. The sun was shining in the young man's face. He walked down the steps with a suitcase in his hands. He was calm and relaxed. Wang smiled, loudly and joyfully, saying that he had finally returned to his great homeland. Raising his hands to the clear sky, the young man rejoiced at his long-awaited arrival home. Those around him looked at him in bewilderment. One of the girls asked her friend, "Is this guy crazy?" The young man's homeland was the city of Pearl. The city was colorful and very clean. There weren't that many people on the streets. Wang Yu rode in a taxi from the airport, simultaneously looking at his hometown, which he had not seen for so long. He said he hadn't seen the city of Pearl for several years, but it had definitely changed a lot in that time. The young man began to think that since he had returned home, he now had personal freedom of choice. In other words, even if he doesn't go on a blind date, no one will do anything to him. He decided to go to Gosu City tomorrow. The streets of the city of Pearl were still illuminated by the bright rays of the sun, but one of the streets was restless. The girl with pink hair ran quickly. Sweat was running down her face and she was out of breath. She immediately screamed at the top of her voice. Why were they chasing her? One of the men said he needed cough syrup. The film crew was outraged by the man's mistakes and began beating him. The man apologized, saying that he had not read the wrong script. Suddenly, a taxi stopped almost in front of the pink-haired girl. An unknown young man began to emerge from it. She said to herself that this guy looks normal and he shouldn't be bad. The girl decided to use it as. Without wasting time, she ran up to the young man and immediately placed her palm on his thigh. She looked at him worriedly, asking why he was late. Didn't he know she was in danger? The girl called him a useless guy. Wang Yu asked the young lady not to talk nonsense. The girl asked how his heart didn't break to leave his sweet girlfriend. But immediately the young man drew attention to the suspicious men in black who were looking at him. Van realized that this girl was pretending to be his girlfriend in order to use her as a shield from these people. He smiled slyly and said to himself that he would teach her a little lesson. This situation seemed funny to him. Wang Yu slapped the cute pink-haired girl's ass. He began to feel her buttocks. The young man said with a smile on his face that it was quite nice. The young lady was stunned by his action. She was very scared and could hardly hold back her tears. The young man continued to caress her thighs. The girl turned around in a panic and hit the young man in the face, calling him a stinking hooligan, but the guy was just floating in clouds of pleasure. Wang Yu whispered in the beauty's ear that since she needed help to deal with these people, first he should get something in return. The pink-haired girl said to herself that she thought he was a nice guy based on his appearance, but he turned out to be a bully. One of the men in black put his hand on his comrade's shoulder, thus stopping him. The huge man turned to the young miss with a smile, asking her not to run away. He said the boss wants her back. The young lady was very scared and hid behind Wang Yu. She asked the handsome man to help her. Wang said he didn't want to get involved in this since she apparently had an unusual background. The girl promised everything he asked if he helped her. The young lady's offer seemed tempting to the young man. He looked at her willingly. Wang Yu with a smile asked her not to forget that she had just agreed to accept any of his requests as a reward. The brute in a black suit looked sternly at the young man, advising him not to get in their way. The young man asked him how he could pass by if this was his girlfriend. He also asked if they lacked common sense. The man in black smiled and said that since he was not going to obey, he should not blame them for their lack of compassion. The brute immediately ordered his subordinates to teach this naughty boy a lesson. Wang Yu smiled and said that after sitting on the plane for a long time, his back ached, and this was a good chance to stretch his muscles. He began to walk slowly towards the crowd of bandits in black. His gait was light and confident. While walking, the young man came up with a plan of action in order to defeat the horde of thugs opposed to him. He ran away abruptly. The young doctor ran at great speed to strike his enemies as quickly as possible. A few seconds later he was in the air. As he made a jump, Van immediately swung his leg. A few seconds later, one of the opponents was hit in the face with a right fist. With a deft movement, the young man twisted the hands of the next opponent, in addition striking his back with his elbow. Wang Yu crushed opponents with deft hand movements. The opponents fell to the floor one after another. A large mountain of dust rose. The young doctor did not stop for anyone. None of the thugs were able to resist him. A few minutes later he stood calmly on his feet, looking at the bandits lying on the floor. The pink-haired cute girl was extremely shocked. She said she had no idea he was so strong. With deep surprise in her bottomless eyes, she asked the young man to beat them until they escaped. One of the bandits held his liver, and barely asked the young miss to reconsider her decision, since the boss was very angry about this. But the persistent charming girl was confident in her decision. She literally struck a pose, making it clear that her decision was undeniable. The man in black barely remained conscious. He was very badly beaten and exhausted. His comrades picked him up and began to carry him. One of them suggested returning first. The pink-haired beauty watched all this with a smile, but unexpectedly, a man's hand touched her shoulder. The girl was slightly alarmed. Wang Yu whispered to the cute girl, calling him his beloved. The young lady ran away from him in fright. About 5 meters away, she excitedly asked what he was going to do. Van asked her with a smile what happened. Was she really going to go back on her words? The girl answered him that her only desire was for him to help her drive these people away. Moreover, he had already groped her. The young man said that she had clearly said that she would get anything as a reward if she drove them away. He asked if she now regretted her words. The lady hysterically asked if he really wants a reward for helping a defenseless girl. Isn't he too calculating? Wang Yu asked for forgiveness for being so calculating, but since she said that she would reward him, then he wants a reward. The beauty turned away from him with displeasure, calling him an impudent man. She angrily asked what reward he wanted. The calculating and straightforward Wang scratched his chin and immediately replied that his wish would be simple. She should let him sleep with her. The girl fell into a stupor after hearing what she heard. She tried to come to her senses and find the words to answer. The shock made several of her pink hairs stand on end. The girl didn't know what to answer him. Tears began to flow from her eyes. The beauty called him a pervert and a hooligan, asking if he dared. Wang Yu answered with a smile to the still crying girl that of course he would dare to do this. He immediately picked up the girl and, placing her on his shoulder, began to walk forward. The lady asked the geek to let her go, otherwise she would start screaming. But the girl became a little thoughtful. The couple was in a huge building with a large number of floors. Van told her that she could scream whatever she wanted and he wouldn't stop her. The pink-haired beauty said to herself that there were a lot of people here, and if she started screaming, it would be too embarrassing. She imagined a situation where she was screaming and calling for help, and those around her were only saying that children these days know how to have fun. Wang Yu quickly walked towards the desired room. Finally reaching the room, he pulled the doorknob. A few seconds later, with a sharp movement, he threw the charming girl onto the bed. He asked her to lie down and be quiet without making any noise. The girl was lying on her stomach. Lying on her stomach, she spread her arms and wondered if this scoundrel was really going to sleep with her. She screamed for him not to come near her. The young man asked her not to make any noise, otherwise someone would hear and think that he wanted to do something to her. Wang Yu sat down on the leather chair with a smile and began to gently run his hand over it. Sitting on the chair, he said that he did it to teach her a lesson. You can't both use other people and promise something so easily. The girl turned away with displeasure and said that he was still a bully, but to herself, she said upsetly that she was leaving. He was just joking. Wang Yu did not talk to her and asked her to leave the premises as soon as possible. The girl stuck her leg out of the bed and stepped on the floor. She was wearing a purple shoe. She said that her father is forcing her to go on a blind date and she thinks that she would be better off going with him instead. Wang Yu looked at the cute girl's charming body. Her underwear was visible from under her skirt, and her tender thighs excited him. Looking higher, he noticed lush and attractive breasts, which barely fit into the bra of the pink-haired beauty. The young man, smiling playfully, asked the beauty if she was afraid that he would eat her. The young lady smiled and replied that if he had dared, he would have done it long ago. Wang Yu was surprised and asked, "Isn't this just a blind date? Why would she go to such lengths to avoid him?" The girl replied that she had not even seen a photo of that guy yet, and her father was already insisting on the wedding. She said it was too much. The young man smiled and said that he also came to the city of Pearl for a blind date, and had also never seen a photograph of that girl. The lady asked in surprise, "What is that girl's name?" Van asked why she was asking. Did she think he was her blind date partner? The girl said in fear that if he was her partner, she should run away immediately. She said to herself that he read her thoughts. The guy replied that he didn't know the girl's name. The only thing he knows is that she is the daughter of a high-ranking official. The beauty said that her father is a businessman and her dating partner is a soldier. Van replied that even though he was a soldier, it seemed that she was not his partner after all. The girl, with great surprise and a bit of excitement, asked if he was really going to go on a blind date. She wondered how he could be a soldier, being so handsome and cute. Wang Yu exhaled and said that he was originally against going on a blind date. The girl's ears peeked out from behind her beautiful pink hair. She was very happy with his words. She asked with caviar in her eyes, "How about we go to the city of Gosu together and hide there, since they are so similar?" The beauty said that she had a cousin there. She has a good figure and a wonderful character. A charming pink-haired lady approached the chair where the young man was sitting. She gently placed her hand on the chair. Approaching him, she said that much more important, her sister's brother is a soldier, and she wants more than anything to marry a soldier. She indignantly asked the young man what he thought about this and whether he wanted to consider a similar option. Wang Yu closely looked at the lush and exciting breasts of the girl who stood right in front of him. Hardly finding words from pleasure, he replied that this was certainly a very tempting offer. But he's not that stupid. He said that it was obvious that she was trying to use him. Besides, is it right to sell her cousin so easily? After hearing what she heard, the girl fell into a stupor. These words literally outraged her. She asked him not to talk nonsense, and if she didn't like him, then she would never let him stalk her cousin. Wang Yu asked why he should go with her in that case. What if her sister didn't like him? Wouldn't he lose then? The girl bit her lip as she struggled to muster up the courage to tell him something important. She gathered her strength with all her might and clenched her fists tightly and said that if her sister didn't like him, and unexpectedly, she said that in this case, she would marry him. It was as if a stone had been lifted from the girl's shoulders. She said to herself that she was ready to do anything to avoid a blind date. Wang Yu thanked her for the invitation, but said that he did not want to suffer and engage in nonsense. He also said that since he decided to go to Gosu City anyway, he wouldn't mind making a deal. A spark of happiness lit up in the eyes of the charming girl. She was glad that the young man agreed to her proposal. She gently clasped the young man's palm with both palms and said that it was time for them to go. A young couple went down to the reception. The busty girl walked ahead of the young man. The girl put the key card on the counter, telling the administrator that she would like to check out of the room. The young girl at the reception looked at the young couple with a strange look, while smiling widely. The pink-haired lady asked her why she was looking at us like that. She said to herself, "What's wrong with them just getting evicted?" The young girl covered her mouth in embarrassment and told the young people that she asked for their forgiveness. Wang Yu and the young miss left the hotel premises. The beauty was perplexed and continued to think. She called the guy a hooligan and asked why that woman was looking at them so strangely. Van asked her how long they spent at the hotel. The girl replied that about 20 minutes, but what does that have to do with the matter? The young man exhaled and said that she was already a grown girl, but she still didn't understand. He asked, "Is there really not enough brains?" Suddenly, it began to dawn on the girl what she was talking about, little by little, but quickly, her face began to change. After a few seconds, when the full picture took shape in the young miss's mind, tears began to flow from her eyes. She hysterically asked the young man if the girl at the reception really thought that she did this to him. Wang Yu behaved calmly and took the girl's hand to try to calm her down. He said with a smile that he should be angry, because she must have thought that he was missing him for a long time. The girl called him a hooligan. Meanwhile, at the Pearl City Lake Pavilion, a breathtakingly beautiful sunset could be seen. A gorgeous brown-haired woman in a beautiful dress turned out to be Wang Yu's blind date partner. She asked her bodyguard if her partner had arrived yet, to which the man replied, "No." He also said that given the situation, he most likely will not come. Miss asked if they hadn't agreed to have a date today. The girl ordered her subordinates to send someone to fetch her partner because she wants to know why he did not show up for the meeting. The sun had set and it was dark outside. A young couple was flying on an airplane. The view from the plane's cockpit was stunning and mesmerizing. A charming pink-haired girl watched the picture with admiration from her seat on the plane. Wang Yu, smiling, asked her what kind of person her cousin was, and why don't she tell her more about her. The girl replied that her sister is the first beauty in Gosu, and, moreover, is also the general director of Susiu Group. The young man said in surprise that her sister must be a special woman, because Susiu Group is a very famous company. MS also emphasized that at the age of 5, her sister could read Tang poetry, and by the time she was 7, she had already reread 4 classics. In the morning the plane landed in the sunny city of Gosu. The sun shone brightly on every quarter of the city. Passengers descended from the plane into the airport building in order to further go to the right places. Wang Yu asked the girl to quickly contact her sister. She excitedly replied that she had already tried, but she was not answering. Miss continued to dial her cousin's number without receiving an answer. She said that this doesn't usually happen. It felt like something had happened. The girl said that it seemed they would have to find a place to sleep on their own. She immediately stopped a taxi. The taxi driver stopped immediately. The young couple began to head towards the back door of the car. Wang Yu asked why don't they go straight to her sister's house. Miss replied that she does not have a home and usually stays in hotels. After hearing what he heard, the young man was a little perplexed. He said it was very strange to stay in hotels. The pink-haired lady agreed with him, saying that some time ago her sister stopped spending the night at home, staying in a new hotel each time. Van smiled slyly and said that now her sister interested him. The girl said that if she doesn't like him, it's forbidden to hook up. The young man asked her to relax, because she would definitely like him. After all, he is so handsome. He smiled slyly and said to himself that she would like him because only he could save her. The pink-haired lady stuck her tongue out at the young man and sent him to hell, calling him a narcissist. Quite unexpectedly, the discussion of the young people was interrupted by the ringing of the phone lying near the girl. The girl immediately picked up her smartphone in order to answer her cousin's phone call as quickly as possible. She was wary because her sister said that she was now in the hospital. The lady replied that she would be there soon. She immediately excitedly told the young man that her cousin was in the hospital and they urgently needed to go there. The young man agreed with her. The girl immediately asked the driver to go to the number 1 hospital in Gosu City as quickly as possible. The taxi driver began to press the gas pedal harder. After a short period of time, the young people stood in front of the hospital entrance. A young man and a young lady entered the building of the number 1 hospital in Gosu City. The hospital was very big. Wang Yu asked the girl what floor her sister was on now. The excited girl replied that it was on the 9th. A man standing in the hospital lobby called out to the doctor at the top of his voice because his child was unwell. He shouted that his son had a very high temperature and asked him to come and examine him immediately. The female doctor said that she would immediately approach the patient. She walked holding her stomach. The woman hurriedly moved towards the man who was holding his sick son in his arms. After touching the child's forehead, she told the man that there was nothing wrong with it, because the temperature was not that high. The doctor asked him to wait a little, saying that she would now give him a tonometer, since first he needed to measure his temperature. The angry and nervous man told the woman that what he hated most in life was waiting. He asked the girl to get out of the way and with a sharp movement kicked her right in the stomach. The girl opened her mouth wide from a painful blow to the stomach. Her eyes were also wide open. The nurse immediately fell to the floor, as the force of the blow was such that she could not stand on her feet. The innocent pregnant girl immediately grabbed her stomach, screaming in pain. She couldn't move. A crowd of people standing behind the geek shouted that only an animal like him could hit a pregnant woman. The impudent man asked everyone to shut up. He also shouted that several doctors should be brought to him immediately, otherwise he would destroy everything here. The pink-haired girl and Wang Yu watched everything happening from the side. Miss called the impudent degenerate. She immediately turned to the young man, asking him to teach this animal a lesson. But she was stunned that the handsome young man was not standing nearby. She wondered where he had gone. Wang Yu, meanwhile, attacked the scoundrel, telling him that a man should never raise his hand against old people, children and pregnant women. The angry scoundrel decided to look back to see who even dared to attack him. But before he could really say anything, he turned around and received a direct punch to the jaw. The impudent man spat out blood after the blow and fell to the floor, as the blow was of stunning force. His powerless child lay with his eyes closed. Wang Yu felt very sorry for the child. He took him in his arms and asked the nurse to take this child away from here and provide assistance. The nurse promised to take care of his temperature. Wang Yu apologized for disturbing him. The beaten bastard was wiping away his own blood while sitting on the floor. He turned to his offender. Wang Yu looked around and the man said that he was talking to him. The bastard threatened to tear his entire family to pieces. With his nose bleeding, the restless impudent man swung his right fist at young Wang Yu, shouting that he was going to die. But the clever young man calmly dodged the blow and asked if once was not enough for him. He said in a calm tone that in this case, he would have to explain everything to him again. The young man swung his fist at the scoundrel. At that same moment, a fist almost pierced the face of the restless scoundrel. There was a cut on his face from which blood was gushing. The blow was stunningly strong and sharp. The enemy was unable to stay on his feet and fell to his knees. On his knees, the insolent man also could not resist, and after a few seconds he completely fell to the floor, unconscious. The pink-haired miss watched Wang Yu's noble act. She was admired by his incredible soldierly sense of justice. A pregnant nurse asked for help. Her stomach hurt very much and she held on to it. Noble Wang Yu walked up to the girl and asked her not to worry and to let him take a look. He decided to check his pulse first. Putting his hand to the girl's hand, he realized that there were slight fluctuations, but the pulse was quite stable. Exhaling, the young specialist said that the girl need not worry, because everything was fine with the child in her womb. The pregnant nurse felt as if a stone had been lifted from her shoulders. Having calmed down a little, the girl asked if it was true that her baby was okay. The doctor smiled and told her that he was a military doctor, so she had no doubts. But if you are still worried, you can go get checked. The girl began to cry with happiness. She began to sincerely thank the doctor, saying that when the baby is born, he can become his godfather. The young couple was in the elevator of the Gosu City Hospital. The elevator button was pressed. Wang Yu and the pink-haired girl bumped shoulders as the elevator was very crowded. The girl turned to the pervert, saying with a smile on her face that she had no idea that he was a military doctor. She continued to smile and said that it was difficult for her to associate a barbarian like her with the sacred profession of a doctor. Her words made the young medical specialist smile. He asked smiling, "Is he really such a barbarian?" He told the girl that he was not the least bit interested in her appearance or figure. He asked if she, being a woman, didn't feel disappointed. But still, the young military doctor emphasized that despite all this, her breasts are still large. The girl with bottomless red eyes was indignant at his expressions about her breasts. She called him a pervert again. Miss told herself that she couldn't defeat him in words, and she couldn't defeat him in a fight either. All this irritated her very much. Suddenly, the click of a button finally sounded. The elevator finally arrived at the 9th floor of the hospital. The pink-haired miss casually called the young man a pervert, saying that they had already arrived at the desired floor. Wang Yu, looking at the corridor, said that obviously her cousin's room was further down the corridor. He emphasized that the bodyguard guarding the entrance to the ward is immediately noticeable. The young miss began to walk towards her cousin's room. Her purple shoes suited her perfectly, but unexpectedly, the bodyguard did not allow them to go further, asking who they even were. The girl was very surprised. She answered fearfully that Su Minting was her cousin, and she had come to see her. Minting, lying in the ward, heard conversations in the corridor. She ordered Ningxue to be let in. Wang Yu was delighted by the voice he heard from the chamber. Ningxue asked him what he was doing. The young military doctor fell into a stupor and said that he admired this elegant and beautiful voice. He also said that he had no idea that a woman's voice could be so beautiful. He was floating in clouds of pleasure. Ningxue decided not to delay and enter her cousin's room. She opened the door. Su Minting had charming yellow eyes. She condescendingly said that her little sister had finally arrived. The young military doctor Wang Yu was wearing a white shirt with a yellow pattern, and he also entered the girl's room. As soon as he saw Su Minting, he was immediately stunned with fascination and admiration. I said to myself that this woman is incredibly beautiful. Drooling with admiration for the magnificent lady, the young man said that his sister was really beautiful. Su Minting looked at the young man with displeasure, silently calling him just a stinky boy. Ningxue led the young man into the corridor. She called him a pervert and asked him to stop fooling around. Unexpectedly, the guy who heard about the pervert immediately asked loudly, "Where is the pervert?" He immediately began shouting and asking where the guards were looking. He ordered this fool to be brought out quickly so that the young master's eyes would not see him. Wang Yu heard all the words the young man said. He addressed him coolly while his back was turned. The young doctor turned around and calmly asked who this guy dared to call a pervert. The guy replied that Sun Yanting is the woman of the gentleman standing in front of him, and if he dares to look at her again, he will tear out his eyes. Ningxue immediately stood up for Wang Yu, asking the red-haired scoundrel who he even was. She advised him to watch his language. Su Minting told Zhang Mingho that they were just business partners. She said she didn't need him to speak on her behalf. The young man became angry with all these reproaches. He couldn't find the right words. Wang Yu began to tease the red-haired boy, calling him poor. He said sarcastically that he felt sorry for him. Sticking out his tongue, he smiled and said that the word fool described Zhang Mingho better than him. With every word he said, the young man became more and more furious. He could hardly contain his anger, and it seemed as if it was boiling like a kettle. At that very moment he shouted at the top of his voice that he would kill the insolent person right away. Zhang Mingho raised his fist, but the young doctor didn't care about his manners. He immediately managed to dodge the blow. Zhang Mingho was stunned as he expected to strike his opponent without thinking that he would be able to dodge. Wang Yu laughed and asked if he had tried to hit him. He called the young man too inexperienced. At that same moment, he cupped the palm of his right hand over the face of the red-haired young man. Zhang was dumbfounded. Van slammed the confident insolent man's head into the wall, so much so that many cracks appeared on the wall. After the blow, a copious amount of foam came out of the young man's mouth, and his eyes rolled upward. A few more seconds later the foam was replaced by a large amount of saliva. The young man showed almost no signs of life. The guards heard what was happening, and at that very moment bodyguards began to break into the door of the room. Opening the door, a young security guard in dark sunglasses immediately nervously asked what happened here. Su Minting condescendingly replied that it seemed that her partner was injured and asked for help. Ningxue told the young pervert that he had quite a punch. Wang Yu told her that this was true, but he still held back. Lying on the medical bed, Minting turned to the young man, saying that he must be one of the military. Wang Yu turned around and asked with a little surprise, how did she manage to guess? His violet eyes looked straight at her. The girl answered the young man that his blow was accurate and fast. He must be pretty well trained. Wang said that it seems that Ningxue was not lying and that the girl really has a soldier's complex. Minting replied that this was true, but she was not at all interested in the young man. Ningxue said with a smile that her sister must have seriously damaged his pride, and in the future he will no longer be shameless. But the young doctor Wang Yu stuck out his tongue and, slightly teasing the girl, said that it was none of her business. Su Minting asked his cousin in surprise, why did she come to Gosu City? The pink-haired sister was at that moment strangling the young doctor. She turned her attention to her sister, who asked a question. The girl strangled her attacker. Sweat ran down Wang Yu's face from the strangulation, but the girl's hands were not so strong. Ningxue answered her sister that she just wanted to see her sister, and asked how she ended up in the hospital. Did she really have an accident? Minting replied with a smile that she was indeed in an accident, but she believed that her sister came to Gosu to avoid a blind date. Wang Yu told the girl that he thought she could use his help. Su asked what he meant. The young man said that he only knew that she was in a serious situation. In times like these, a man as handsome and strong as he should be by your side. Su Minting became wary and indignantly asked the young man who he even was. The girl, lying on the medical bed, began to tightly clutch the blanket with which she was wrapping herself. Suddenly, she became nervous and said to herself that she shouldn't just say that he knew about everything. Wang Yu found it strange that an elegant girl like her would study such a murderous aura. He said to himself that she does not return home and spends every night in a new hotel. There must be something really wrong. Wang suggested that she spends the night in hotels because only by changing her place of residence every day can she ensure her own safety. The young doctor guessed the reason for Minting's actions, and at that very moment he smiled widely. He scratched the back of his head and, smiling widely, asked the girl why she was so nervous. He's a soldier, not some kind of bandit. Ningxue convinced her sister that he was truly a soldier, albeit a pervert with a sharp tongue. Wang Yu tried to understand if she was helping him with these words. The girl said that he has a strong sense of justice. He just stood up for a nurse who was hit by some geek. Minting said smiling that perhaps she had become too sensitive. She invited the young man to talk tomorrow after his discharge. Looking at him, she told herself that she needed to find out who he was. Perhaps he really can help. Wang Yu paid tribute and said that he would be very happy to discuss all the details with the girl. Unexpectedly, Ningxue's face changed, as if she had seen something terrible. She said Tick doesn't know his place. Suddenly a loud man's scream was heard. The man said that Su Yanting should explain everything to him thoroughly. At that same moment, the door to the young girl's room suddenly swung open. A man broke into the room. The angry man loudly asked her if she thought that he would be afraid of her only because of her security. Su Yanting remained calm and acted cool. She exhaled calmly to start the conversation. In a calm tone, the girl answered the man that she had no idea what he was talking about. The man could hardly contain his anger. Sweat ran down his face and he smiled through gritted teeth. He pointed his finger and asked her not to pretend, and asked what happened to his son and why he was unconscious in the operating room. These words alarmed the girl a little. She wondered to herself, was Zhang Mingho really that seriously injured? Wang Yu wondered to himself, would this icy beauty really give him away? But even if she does this, he will go his own way. The girl gathered her strength and calmly told Zhang Zhongwei that she would explain everything to him properly, but not right now. Van was pleased with himself and smilingly told himself that to think that this icy beauty would protect him. An angry Zhongwei clenched his fist and told Su Yanting not to dare think of him as a fool. He was very angry and asked why wait. He ordered everything to be explained to him right here and now. The pink-haired beauty Ningxue became angry at his behavior. It was as if something had turned over in her head. She made a rude remark to the man, saying it was a hospital, and who even let him scream here. The young man Wang Yu approached Zhang Zhongwei from behind and put his hand on his shoulder. He said that the girl said everything correctly. He asked for silence with a smile, saying that the man's son had also decided to shout not long ago, and it didn't end well for him. The man looked him sternly in the eyes. With a little bewilderment, he asked the boy what he meant. Su Yanting lay on the bed and watched the dialogue between the men. She said to herself that she did not expect the young man to climb. She continued to monologue in her head with a serious look. She said it would only make things worse and he was too young. Wang Yu asked Zhongwei to think about it. This is a hospital. After all, people die here every day. The young man also said that as a result, there is a lot of ghostly qi here, and his son's behavior angered the ghosts, so they took care of him. These words excited and at the same time angered old man Zhang Zhongwei even more. He grabbed the young guy's collar. He asked him threateningly if he was really looking for death. Holding the youth by the collar, he asked him to stop talking nonsense. Ningxue angrily watched all this and did not understand what was wrong with the pervert. Such a lie will only anger the old man. Old Zhongwei let go of the collar of the young man's shirt, giving him his word. Wang Yu said that she understood that the man would not believe him, but what happened to his son is very strange. Starting to swear, he suddenly ran towards the wall. He tried to visualize the described picture of how the old man's son had gone mad during the conflict. The young man began to describe the picture of how the red-haired young man runs towards the wall and hits it. This kind of lie made Zhang Zhongwei even more angry. He asked the young man whether he really dared to laugh at him. The old man threateningly told the boy that he would kill him and would not show an iota of compassion in the process. Such threats from the old man did not frighten Wang Yu at all. The young man looked at the floor, smiling slightly. The guy was not an easy guy, so he had long ago come up with a plan of action. He prepared a stone lying in his right hand. A small pebble was immediately launched towards the impudent old man. The young man turned out to be accurate and did not miss. The stone hit the man's stomach. Zhang Zhongwei bent over in pain. The man could not stand on his feet from the pain, and immediately fell to his knees. He complained of severe abdominal pain. Wang Yu immediately told the bodyguards that Zhongwei was also struck by the ghostly qi, so there was no way to shout here. Two men in black lifted the man to take him to the doctor. The old man continued to suffer from pain. Ningxue asked the pervert with particular surprise, was Zhang Zhongwei really infected with ghostly qi? Su Yanting said to herself that he must have done something to him. Wang Yu said that Ningxue has huge breasts, but no brains. Beauty Yanting interrupted their discussion, saying that they needed to pack up and prepare for discharge. She said she was already fine. The trio headed to the hotel. The hotel was truly huge. There were many people in the lobby. The car in which the trio was traveling stopped. A woman's foot in a purple shoe stuck out of the car. A girl with charming hips got out of the car, saying that they had finally arrived at the hotel. People standing in the hotel lobby were shocked by the appearance of the trio. They noticed a beauty among them. The surrounding men were stunned by her beauty. Three of them stood and looked at her with their mouths open. Su Yanting asked her to wait for 10 minutes because she needed to change clothes first. Her room is next door to the young couple's room. After speaking these words, Wang Yu seemed to get excited. He said that he would be looking forward to her. The young man and Ningxue stood in front of the door to Yanting's room. Suddenly the turning of a key was heard in the door. The girl opened the door and kindly invited the young couple to enter. She could excite anyone with her appearance. Wang Yu covered his mouth in admiration. He told himself that she was beautiful in ordinary clothes, but what if she wore classy ones? Walking into the room, everyone sat down on chairs. There was an awkward silence for the first few minutes. Yanting said she had a few questions before getting down to business. Wang said that he only pressed on the opponent's acupuncture point. He said to himself at that very moment that in fact he used a stone for this, but she would not believe him. While drinking hot coffee, Su Yanting asked in surprise, "Is he really an expert in acupuncture?" At that very moment she put the hot glass of drink on the table because she didn't want to get burned. Wang Yu began to lie that he used acupuncture on the battlefield to save many lives. The effectiveness of Western medicine is too low. Yanting seriously asked him not to turn up his nose and asked if he even understood how much trouble he had caused them. She said that the Zhang family in Gosu is very strong, and Zhongwei will not let him get away with it. If he takes it up, then her strength may be enough to protect him. Wang Yu confidently stated that she need not worry about it, because they would definitely not harm him. The girl asked if he really thought that his lies could deceive Zhongwei. She advised him to tell him the truth. Smiling, the young man said that he pressed one of Zhang Mingho's points, so that he would not remember anything, and Zhongwei would believe that it was all the ghost's fault. The young man completed his story by saying that they would not suspect him of this. He asked if the girl was still worried about his safety. Su Yanting said while drinking coffee, since he has such abilities, then she shouldn't worry so much. Having finished her wonderful invigorating coffee, the girl with a slight movement put the empty glass aside. She stood up from her chair and desperately told Van that someone was trying to kill her. She asked him to use his skills and help her. Wang Yu was still calm, sitting on a chair. He said that beauties have their own problems. Having straightened his shirt, he confidently stated that she shouldn't worry and leave it to him. But with a smile, he said that he wouldn't help just like that, and she had to promise him something. Su Yanting looked into his eyes and asked how much he wants. But Wang Yu asked her to become his girlfriend with a smile. These words greatly surprised the young beauty. She looked at the guy with particular surprise. The girl did not resist the young man's proposal, and at that very moment said that she promised to become his girlfriend. She also said that she was very tired, so she would go to rest. The beauty also asked the young man to return later. Wang Yu did not detain the beauty, he closed the door behind him and left Su Yanting's room. Running his index finger over his smiling lips, he began to reflect on everything that was happening. With a smile, he told himself that this woman had a strong character. This greatly impressed the young man. It was a beautiful sunny day outside. The windows of Gosu City Hospital No. 1 were shining from the sun. The doctor worriedly told Mr. Zhang that according to the test results, there was nothing wrong with his body, and they could not find the cause of the abdominal pain. Zhang Zhongwei became very angry after the words the doctor said. He spread his fingers out of nerves. He shouted, "Are doctors really so useless that they can't even figure out such a small thing?" The doctor was very worried and said that he had been working as a doctor for many years, but this was the first time in his practice. An embittered Zhongwei ordered the clueless doctor to immediately leave his room. The doctor immediately complied. Zhang told himself that this is the best Gosu hospital. In terms of medicine, it is among the best in the country. He wondered if this was really the work of evil spirits. The bodyguard told Mr. that his teacher was a very capable practitioner of Chinese medicine, and perhaps he could figure out the reason. The words spoken by the bodyguard interested the old man Zhongwei. He was surprised that he was talking about Chinese medicine. She did not doubt it and at that very moment told the young man to call his teacher here. Meanwhile, the trio of partners were in a luxurious restaurant, where there were a small number of people. On the table were plates with wonderful-looking desserts with a jelly consistency. They beckoned me to try it. The pink-haired beauty Ningxue broke off a tasty piece of the dessert in order to taste its taste. At that very moment the girl received indescribable pleasure. A beautiful smile appeared on her face. The young man Wang Yu enjoyed the girl's smile. He was literally stunned at that moment because she looked so cute. Ningxue looked at the young man and sarcastically asked Sister Xian Ting if she thought they had a big lamp here. Van smiled when he heard this and asked the pink-haired beauty if she was talking about him to her sister. Ningxue said that it was natural about him, because they had been talking for so long, and he hadn't said a word the entire time. The young man told her that he would join the conversation, but would she agree to it? The beauty replied that they were not so petty. She asked what they would do if he got in. She emphasized the strangeness of his behavior. Wang Yu laughed lightly and asked why don't they see if he can fit in a little later. His words seemed to hurt the pink-haired beauty Ningxue. She fell silent for a while because she didn't know how to answer. The girl immediately started screaming at the young man, because she couldn't think of anything else. But Wang Yu did not pay attention to her as he enjoyed the beauty of her cousin. Su Yanting smiled sweetly and delighted the young man with her smile. He seemed to blossom looking at her smile. Enjoying the beauty of the girl, he said to himself that when this goddess smiles, she simply captivates with her femininity. Quite unexpectedly, the moment of enjoying the beauty of the goddess was interrupted by a telephone call. The call came from an unknown number that persistently continued to call. The trio turned their attention. Yanting immediately became wary, because she began to guess who this call might be from. The girl abruptly got up from the table and said that they had finished eating and it was time to return home. After some time, the trio returned to the hotel. It was already evening outside. There was a soft knock on the door of the charming beauty Su Yanting's room. It was young Dr. Wang Yu. The girl opened the door and kindly invited the young man to enter. She delighted me with her beauty. She made coffee for the guest and said that she believed he understood who called her. Hot coffee beckoned with its aroma. While drinking aromatic and invigorating coffee, Wang Yu replied that if he was not mistaken, it was a call from the killer. Yanting said that he thinks correctly, and this killer calls every time he makes another attempt to kill her. Van, enjoying strong coffee, told himself that this confidence and demeanor said that it must be the killer. He immediately said in surprise that the killer was strange. Shouldn't he be afraid that she would run away? Su Yanting lowered her head, saying that she also thought so the first time, but everything turned out differently. She said that no matter how hard she tries to get away from him, he always finds her, and there is no point in running away. The girl raised her thumb to her mouth, fearfully telling the story. She said that this word is an endless nightmare. Wang Yu approached the girl and asked how many times such attempts to kill her were repeated. The girl was desperate and morally broken. She answered, looking at the floor, that this was already the 5th time. Wang said to himself that this woman is quite smart, he must have met a worthy opponent, either way, she would already be dead. Putting down the cup of hot coffee, he asked what she was going to do this time. Su Yanting replied that she was going to a party today, the killer must be planning to kill her on the way there. Inside, the girl was consumed by a feeling of fear and excitement. She stood in one place wearing yellow shoes. The beauty with yellow eyes said that she would now call the security because there was a meeting to be held, and also come up with countermeasures together to thwart the killer's plans. She took out her smartphone to make a call. The cool-headed Wang Yu sat on the chair and quite calmly told the beauty that there was no need for this. The girl told him that she hired the best security in China to make sure everything was in order. She said he needed to meet them. The young man corrected her, saying that she had misunderstood him. Yanting asked what did he mean then. The young man said that he meant that such an operation does not require a large number of people, one would be enough. Su Yanting told the young man that she was not going to die because of him, and their union was over from now on. She also asked him to leave. Wang Yu, hearing the words spoken to her, said to himself that he was surprised at this high arrogance. The young doctor asked the beauty if she really didn't trust him that much. Yanting, with her back turned, replied that she didn't trust an ignorant guy like him. She turned her head and asked for forgiveness in a condescending tone, saying that she could not trust him. Van asked her to think it over, because why would he risk his life if he couldn't protect her? The girl agreed to trust him. After some time, Su Yanting went to the planned dinner party. It was a sunny day outside. The girl sparkled with charming red shoes in combination with a wine-colored silk dress. The girl was accompanied by a charismatic young man in a white shirt, who straightened his black tie. Yanting straightened her silky hair. The slender and attractive Su Yanting condescendingly called the young man to follow her, saying that it was time for them to go. The charming beauty's calm bodyguard opened the car door for her to get in. The car began to drive to the place where the planned party was to take place. Sitting in the car, Yanting painted her shiny, soft lips. She said the party would be held at Mo Holy's mansion. She also added that as soon as they leave the city, they will begin to look for opportunities to harm her. The girl looked down desperately. The confident bodyguard Wang Yu told the girl that she shouldn't worry and leave the rest to him. The girl was not at all invigorated by his statements. She was still exhaling desperately and looking at the floor. Wang Yu smiled and said to himself that it seemed that the charming beauty still did not believe in him. A luxurious black Mercedes brought the yellow-eyed beauty to the venue of the party. The girl's bodyguard asked the driver to stop the car because they were already being followed. Wary Su Yanting disputed his words, asking the driver to speed up and escape immediately. The driver of the luxury car tried to remain calm, but was still nervous because he didn't know who to listen to. The girl panicked and shouted to the driver that he couldn't stop. She asked to speed up immediately. Wang Yu was calm and said that they were being pursued, and if they started to run away, the opponents would only become more aggressive. Yanting warily asked the young man how he knew that they would pursue them. The guy replied that her security in the city center tried to distract the pursuers, but they failed. The girl wondered how he knew that she gave instructions to the guards. Was it he who told the killers about her whereabouts? Wang Yu told the girl that she still didn't trust him. He asked if he were a murderer, would she still be breathing? The black Mercedes continued to ride on the tail of the car in which Su Yanting and Wang were riding. The girl warily asked if they really couldn't do something to break away from their opponents. The young bodyguard asked the driver to stop the car in a cool and calm tone. Su Yanting, barely holding back tears, agreed, saying that the operation had failed, and she had been discovered and would soon be killed. Wang Yu said that he wanted to go out and deal with them, and she could take the opportunity to escape. The charming beauty immediately opened her eyes wide. She was greatly taken aback by his proposal. She immediately asked the driver of the car to stop immediately in order to give her the opportunity to escape. The driver of the luxury car obeyed the order and immediately stopped the car. The beautiful lady's confident bodyguard stepped out of the car. The pursuer's car also stopped. Van wondered if this girl was really so cruel that she actually sent him out to deal with several mercenary vehicles alone. The girl's car began to quickly drive away from the mercenaries. Wang Yu was waiting to meet the mercenaries. The door of a luxurious black car opened. A blond man dressed in black began to crawl out of it. He and his bald colleague stood in black suits and sunglasses, smiling at the young man. But Wang Yu was not at all worried and confidently suggested that the opponents not waste time and simply fight. But suddenly the phone rang, the ringtone sang something about seaweed dancing among the waves. The ringtone was intrusive and annoying. It turned out that the call came from a young bodyguard. This angered Wang Yu a little, as all the tension he had built up was washed away like a wave. In a phone call, Su Yanting asked him not to be stubborn, saying that she would wait for him. To himself, the young man called her arrogant. At that very moment the mercenaries did not sleep. One of the mercenaries in brown patent leather shoes approached the guy. The bandit took off his dark sunglasses with yellow frames to allow the youth to look into his eyes. A mercenary with a scar on his face asked the boy if he really wanted to fight dozens of soldiers alone, but his threats were ignored. Wang Yu enjoyed the beauty's enchanting voice on the phone. This greatly angered the mercenary. He rudely declared that since the boy had already decided to ignore him, then he personally would be finished off. Suddenly, the cool-headed Wang turned his attention away from the phone call, turning his gaze to the mercenary who was about to hit him. At that very moment he turned off the phone call, because he realized that a fight could not be avoided. He smiled confidently in the face of his opponent, asking if he was sure that he was ready for the fight. When the insidious mercenary was ready to strike, the clever boy cupped his face with his palm. A few seconds later, the arrogant bandit with a scar on his face found himself lying on the asphalt. The mercenary lay with his eyes rolled up. At the same moment, a luxury car with Yanting sitting in it arrived. She said to herself that she had underestimated Wang Yu. The young man straightened his tie and asked to be allowed to make a good offer so as not to waste their time. He looked insidiously at his opponents, saying that it would be better for them all to attack him at once. One of the mercenaries loudly ordered the others to take their positions. He announced the construction of 5 death rows. Su Yanting watched everything that was happening standing to the side. She began to worry after hearing this. One of the mercenaries told the boss that the formation of 5 death rows was the rarest in the martial arts world. It was also said that many strong people had died challenging this formation, and now Wang Yu was in danger. The driver of the car told Madame Yanting that the young man would not last long. He offered to escape while he detained them. The girl said that she was not capable of running away so vilely while he was facing danger face to face. Su Yanting was determined and firmly stated that she would wait for the young man. The cunning blonde mercenary took advantage of Wang Yu's distraction and attacked him from behind. But the young man was not from the ordinary. He still remained calm and only turned his head. He told the blonde that all his actions were just cheap tricks, and he shouldn't act so arrogantly towards him. Just as the mercenary was about to launch an airstrike, Wang Yu swung his fist and delivered a striking blow. The driver of the car was stunned. Because he managed to defeat everyone, Su Yanting was amazed that the guy defeated such a strong opponent. Wang Yu lifted one of the mercenaries into the air, holding him by the neck. He said sarcastically that they looked good, but now they just yap. A bald bandit in black glasses asked excitedly what he needed. He also added that he would rather die than tell anything. Van said that he would not kill him, he only asked him to tell their beast lord that he wished to meet him. The mercenary's eyes widened in shock. He asked the young man how he knew that their boss was a beast master. The young man looked him insidiously in the eyes, saying that weaklings should not really ask him questions. He told him to run and do what he ordered. The mercenary obeyed the young man's command. Immediately he got into a black car. A few seconds later, he started from the spot and drove away in order to quickly fulfill the young man's orders. Behind Wang Yu stood the extraordinary beauty Su Yanting, who was watching all this. The guy told her with a smile that he told them to go back and report to their boss. Now her problem should be completely resolved. The girls clasped their hands together and asked what he wanted to get as a reward for such help. The young man almost started bleeding from his nose. He began to think about what he wanted as a reward. Smiling indulgently, the young man was told that his desire was very simple. Wang Yu asked the charming girl to give him an unforgettable kiss. He imagined her sweet, alluring lips. Su Yanting was shocked by his request. She stood silently and looked into his eyes for a while. The girl understood that she herself had made him a promise. She did not resist and decided to do it. A few seconds later, the girl in red shoes began to walk towards the young man. Wang Yu looked at her and told himself that happiness comes very quickly. He was in anticipation of a miracle. The young man stood motionless in one place. A gift of fate was about to happen. The girl had already come close to the young master in order to give him the promised kiss as a reward. Standing next to the young man, she stood on her tiptoes to reach out and kiss him. She whispered to him that he was going too far, because they had recently met. She said that she could not fulfill such a request. The words spoken made the young man fall into a stupor. He asked if a kiss is really such an intimate thing. Su Yanting turned her back to him, saying that in her understanding, such things are only possible between husband and wife. Wang Yu smiled and asked the girl, "What about the agreement to become his girlfriend then?" The girl with her back turned grinned. While she remained silent, the young man waited with trepidation for an answer. But he never received an answer. Su Yanting continued to remain silent and rushed forward. Meanwhile, there was a clear sky and rainbow rays above the luxurious Mo Holy Mansion. A marsh-colored car stopped in front of the main gate of the mansion. The territory guard began to walk towards the car. The driver of the car who arrived at the mansion handed the invitation to the party to the security guard so that he could check it. The guard looked respectable and was cool-headed. He had black glasses on his face. He said that guests had arrived. The guests entered the premises of the Mo Holy Mansion. A huge and bright chandelier hung right at the entrance. Wang Yu followed the beauty god Su Yanting. She was like his guide to the mansion. The young man, smiling, asked the charming girl who he was in today's program, her boyfriend or servant. The girl smiled coquettishly and replied that, of course, in today's program he was her boyfriend. Van melted from the warmth. Su Yanting asked with a smile, "Does he really think that a bodyguard can get into such a high-class party?" The young guy's flirtatious mood was destroyed. Her words destroyed his fantasies. At that very moment he began to understand everything that was happening. His dreams and fantasies were false. The guy, almost bursting into tears, said to himself that now it was clear why he could enter the mansion. Those around were very surprised. They exclaimed in one voice, "Has President Su really come?" Su Yanting attracted admiring glances from everyone around her with her luxurious dress. The man in the brown jacket said happily that Madame Su had finally graced them with her presence. A gentleman in a respectable suit examined the extraordinary image of the girl. She sympathized with him. Su Yanting apologized for making Mr. Huang Fu wait so long for her to appear. The man said to himself that she did not bring a man with her to any of the parties, but this time it is an undeniable fact. Wang Yu stood behind the girl, remaining silent. He carefully examined those around him. He said to himself that the man's eyes were shining with hatred. Their family may not be a well-known name in China, but they have long been a famous family. Huang Fu told Su Yanting that she was safe in this house, and she did not need to bring a bodyguard with her because he was always ready to protect her. The girls who watched this whole picture were delighted with the beauty and coolness of young Mr. Fu. Wang Yu watched their conversation, standing a few centimeters away from the young master. After overhearing some parts of the conversation, he said to himself that it all sounded very innocent. Huang Fu said that when he came here, the bodyguards like the young man were very nervous. Perhaps this was his first time attending a first-class reception. A person from the crowd said that this is true. The bodyguard will never understand this kind of atmosphere. After all, they are all poor people. Wang Yu said to himself that now they would all see how Su Yanting would react to this. He smiled slyly. Smirking, the young bodyguard said that in that case, he would probably go. The girl asked him not to leave. She told Huang Fujuan that most likely he misunderstood everything, because he was her boyfriend, not her bodyguard. Young Master Fu was completely stunned by the words she said. There was no description for the surprise in his eyes. The crowd around was shocked no less than the young master. Everyone silently watched what was happening. Someone from the crowd said that the girl's words were like a resounding slap in the face for Huang Fujuan, embarrassing him in front of so many guests. One of the people wondered if she wasn't afraid that he would try to take revenge. Even though she is very famous in Gosu, this will not save her from death. The young man Wang Yu rejoiced in his heart and smiled joyfully on the outside, as this situation was like a balm to his soul. He immediately asked Su Yanting indignantly, how could she say such things? He promised to be her bodyguard, not her boyfriend. People from the crowd said that this young man allowed himself so much sarcasm towards Feng Jun. He's definitely looking for death. Wang Yu sarcastically told the young master that he had already rejected Su Yanting, giving him a chance to pursue her. He asked how it felt for him. A charming beauty in a red dress smiled with her back turned. She understood that the young man was doing everything right. She smiled and rejoiced in her soul. She wanted to dance with joy. She said to herself that he was very impudent. Young Master Huang Fujian said in a calm tone that this is excellent, and he hopes that he will not regret it. Mr. Huang Fu decided to leave the girl alone. He began to walk away with a calm step. Wang Yu was absolutely calm. He asked the beautiful Su Yanting, "Who is this Fujian?" The girl grinned at the young man and asked what happened. Was he really scared? The young man held his stomach and began to laugh. He asked why she thought that he was afraid of him. Yanting said that in Huajing, two families have the highest influence. In the north is Murong, and in the south is Huang. Fujian is the heir of their family. The young man continued to use sarcasm. He told the girl that she could have talked about this huge problem before, and now he was finished. Su Yanting was not happy at all. She looked at him seriously, asking if he was pretending again. She told others that this was actually her boyfriend. She also told the young man that they had better leave. Wang Yu yawned and said that it was really not interesting here at all, so it was better to go home and take a nap. The hotel where the young couple checked into was brightly lit by the sun's rays. The weather was beautiful outside. Wang poured tea into his mug, saying to himself that it was not easy to get close to Su Xinting. What should he do now, having become her boyfriend? The young man sat silently and thought about everything that was happening in his life, drinking hot tea. Smiling, he said that now little Huang Fu will take revenge. He wondered how soon he would send someone. At that very moment, after the words he said, the light curtain leading to his room swung open. Two unknown people who looked like mercenaries came out from behind her. They were a woman and a man, dressed in black latex suits. A sharp combat knife protruded from the leather sheath. The man grabbed onto it, hinting to the young man that he was in trouble. The young man put the cup of hot tea aside in order to have a discussion with the impudent people. He was absolutely calm and told them that if they turned around and left, they would not get hurt. The mercenary in a black latex suit only grinned evilly, calling the young man very impudent. The assassin did not waste any time. Deciding to deal with the target as quickly as possible, he began to run towards the young man. As he ran, he smiled wickedly, shouting at the young man to prepare to die. Wang Yu smiled and said that this is not a shadow-casting step of the bloody shadow gate, but he just doesn't have enough strength. The mercenary was shocked, because this guy recognized the name of his technique at one glance. The young man grabbed his opponent's hand. He told his opponent with a smile that he would teach him a lesson in the real blood shadow technique. A few seconds later, a powerful blow was struck in the opponent's face with a fist. His teeth were barely intact. The enemy barely remained conscious after the stunning blow of the dexterous young man. The young man Wang Yu stood confidently and firmly on his feet. He still remained calm and was ready to deal with the enemy. Blood was flowing from the mercenary's mouth. He was very nervous and said to himself that this monster even knows technology. His fellow purple-haired mercenary stood to the side, watching the men duel. The girl got angry and grabbed a sharp combat knife from her leather holster, preparing to kill her enemy. She looked intently and sternly at the defenseless. In her opinion, young man, the mercenary was confident that she would defeat him. But the deft Wang Yu was not at all afraid of the girl, and counterattacked her while striking. He told her that because she was a girl, he would not beat her, but she will have to pay. The black latex suit hugged the girl's chest. The young man took the chance and grabbed her. The girl was dumbfounded. She tried to escape from the bully's hands, trying to resist with all her might. She was very nervous. Removing the young man's hands, the mercenary began to cover her chest with her hands, shouting that he was a hooligan. Straightening his tie, the young man told the mercenaries that they could not kill him, and if they wanted to live, they had better run away before he changed his mind. The mercenaries looked at each other with serious glances. They were very nervous and both understood that they had to leave. The purple-haired mercenary held her injured colleague, telling him that they had better get out of here quickly. The killers in black suits quickly began to leave the young man's room. The fearless Wang Yu lit a cigarette after the killers left in order to calm down and think about everything. Smoking a cigarette, he said that young people today are stupid, because if you don't finish your education, you won't live long as a murderer. Suddenly his peace was disturbed by the opening of the front door by an unknown person. The door opened, and after that, a girl wearing blue patent leather shoes entered the room. It turned out that it was Su Yanting. She told Wang Yu that she needed to talk to him. The young man handed her a cup of coffee, saying that she could speak directly, because they were almost one family. Yanting took a relaxed sip of the warm drink, thanking the guy for today. The sweet girl's gratitude was like a balm for the young man's soul. He crossed his legs. He said with a smile that there was no need for gratitude, because protecting girls is the duty of any gentleman. The girl was emotionally different from him at that moment. She said quietly that she still had to tell him something. Wang Yu said that he was aware that he and Xia Xing were sisters, so it was not for nothing that both decided to use him as a human shield. Su Yanting asked the guy with a serious face, what happened between him and her sister Ning? The guy answered her with a smile that her sister was being chased by a group of men, so she used him as a shield. He told her that she was pestered by Huang Fujuan today and she also used him as a shield. Do sisters even act the same? The girl covered her mouth after hearing this. Her emotional state at the moment was difficult to describe. She told the guy a little excitedly that she felt very sorry for him. The young man became humble and said that he was very unhappy. He took advantage of his acting and squeezed out a tear, saying that she promised to become his girlfriend, and they hadn't even held hands yet. Wang Yu asked that it turns out that her words about becoming his girlfriend were a lie. Su Yanting sat down on a chair and folded her hands. She tried to find words because she had something to say. Wiping away tears, she said she had gone through a painful experience that was deeply embedded in her heart. The girl said that she needed enough time to understand her relationship with him. She continued to speak out to the young man, but she sat with his hands folded, as if planning something. There was only a table between Wang Yu and Su Yanting. The young man suddenly rose from his chair. He reached across the table with his hand towards the girl, with the goal of touching her. She was a little surprised. Wang Yu touched Su Yanting's tender face with his palm. The beauty was very surprised by his action. The young man brought his face close to hers, saying with a smile that he understood everything and would wait. The girl's eyes at that moment were filled with half stun and half anger. Confident, Wang Yu decided not to waste the chance and allowed himself to touch the girl's tender face. Angrily, the girl asked the young man who told him to wait for her. She began to leave in anger. Su Yanting's face turned red with anger. She rudely told the young man that she was finished and was leaving. The girl quickly left the room, angrily and loudly slamming the door behind her. Wang Yu called her a sweet and proud woman. He squeezed his hand a little and said that now he was finally able to touch the girl's face. A conspicuous and modest man in black was riding a horse. People shouted for him to get out and not interfere. The secretive man with the black hat asked those who wished to fight him to show themselves. The man with a little stubble said quietly that today, however, there was a strong wind. His stubble highlighted his face. The man grinned and began to laugh, considering himself strong and invincible. A secretive man in a black robe arrived at the hospital to treat old man Zhang. The old man's young bodyguard introduced the inconspicuous man, saying that this was his teacher, Master Yizhen. Zhang thought he was strange. The master hid his eyes under his hat, asking the lying old man to try to hit him. Zhongwei warily asked his young bodyguard to hit the man immediately. The young man stood in a stupor because he could not make a decision. He didn't understand what to do. After a few seconds, the young man clenched his fist, asking the boss not to blame him if he killed the old man. He did not hesitate and immediately swung his right fist at the seemingly helpless old man. But when the punch was almost delivered, the secretive man dodged at the last moment. He laughed in the young man's face, because he did not even expect that the inconspicuous master was capable of such a thing. Yizhen grabbed the young man's tie and then punched him in the chin. After a sharp blow, the young bodyguard could not stand on his feet and immediately fell to the floor. Zhang Zhongwei clapped the master, saying that he was truly a master, since such a blow could not harm him. The old man, a little excitedly, asked the master to follow him so that he could examine it. But unexpectedly, Zhongwei's stomach made itself known again. There was acute pain in the abdominal area. The man complained of pain. Teacher Yizhen secretly but warily looked at the man complaining of pain. His hand seemed to be illuminated by yellow rays. He gained strength to perform a healing action. He didn't think twice and delivered a sharp blow to Zhang Zhongwei's stomach area. The man was stunned and spat out blood. The force of the blow was very high, due to which he immediately fell to his knees because he could not resist. The crowd of bodyguards immediately became wary. Some of the guards pointed a gun at the old man, asking him to explain himself for this offense. Zhang Zhongwei, kneeling and suffering from pain, asked what did this old master do. But after a few seconds, holding his stomach, he noticed something strange. The teacher looked at him. Zhongwei was very surprised as he realized that the sharp pain in his stomach disappeared instantly. The man held his hand just below his chest, trying to understand how the teacher managed to remove the pain. He fell to his knees before the master, saying that the old senator was arrogant. Old man Zhang is too hasty and short-sighted. Yizhen said that he never thought he could take revenge. He told the old man that his descendants would pay for the humiliation he suffered that year. Zhang Zhongwei wondered if Wang Yu was the heir mentioned by the old master. At the same time, young Dr. Wang Yu, while in his room, sneezed very hard. He said sneezes weren't that rare, but today was special. He wondered if anyone was remembering him. Ningxue said that an old man like him who has done so many bad things will probably be cursed by many people behind his back, so it is normal to sneeze. Wang Yu said that he had a feeling that she was against him. The girl smiled and said that her happiness was built on his pain. The young man just grinned and asked her to wait a while until he took her seriously. Walking along the road, he told her what it meant. Then his happiness would be built on her pain. But with a smile, he emphasized one thing: after all, this will not be the first time for the sweet beauty Ningxue. For the first few seconds, the beauty in purple shoes did not understand what she was talking about. With a serious and thoughtful face, she tried to understand why he was talking about pain and first experience. But after some time it dawned on her what he meant. The girl immediately went wild, but the young man just laughed and asked if she wanted to become his sister. At this moment the girl was stunned. Something strange was happening inside her, because he offered her to be a sister. A young couple sat down on a bench in the park. The girl said dissatisfiedly that she did not want to be a sister. The dissatisfaction in her eyes was enormous. She clearly wanted more than just being a sister. Wang Yu asked the girl in bewilderment what was wrong with her and why was she behaving so strangely. With a smile on his face, the young man handed the girl an ice cream on a stick, offering to eat it to cheer her up. Dissatisfied, Ningxue turned her nose up at the ice cream that the cheerful young man was handing her. But in the end, she still did him a favor by opening her mouth. The young man held out the ice cream. Wang Yu was a little surprised, saying to himself that this girl was overdoing it, because this pose was too strange. Ningxue scratched her ear, saying to herself that everything was becoming much more ambiguous. People nearby said that this guy is a real pervert for allowing such a thing with such a beautiful girl. Wang Yu exhaled desperately, saying that this was too dirty and perverted. He told the girl that such a look was not very graceful. The girl's eyes turned a little red with anger. He glared at the young man. Suddenly, the girl angrily screamed at the top of her voice for Wang Yu to return the ice cream that had been taken to her. The young man looked at the wooden ice cream stick with bewilderment. He was a little surprised. He asked Ningxue if she was afraid that she would have a headache. The girl ate the whole ice cream. At that very moment the girl stood up in a stupor. Her eyes bulged and a small amount of saliva came out of her mouth. She grabbed her head. The young man asked her who told her that she could eat whole ice cream. He held out a towel to wipe her mouth. The girl wiped her mouth with tears in her eyes, and her head still hurt from the cold ice cream. She continued to cry and suddenly looked angrily at Wang Yu standing in front of her. Ningxue exclaimed that she didn't care, because she was angry with him and was not going to be his sister. The young man asked her to allow him to become her sister. At the same moment, the girl suddenly became quiet. She grinned slightly and began to think about something. With a smile, she answered the young man that there was no difference, so she forgives him. It was deep night and the moon was shining brightly. Tired Ningxue told Wang Yu that she couldn't do it anymore. The young man was sweating and also out of breath. His hair was wet, but still, he smiled. The girl, wet with fatigue, said in a tired voice that she was not capable of such a thing. Wang Yu continued to jog, smilingly telling the girl to hold on, because they were almost there. The girl was exhausted and said that it was enough running around, because they went out to eat and take a walk, and he, like a demon, makes her run in the middle of the night. The young man ran up to the girl and smiled and said that for her information, sport is life. Suddenly, the evil old man Zhang Zhongwei showed up and told the young man that sport sucked. He did not hesitate and confidently declared that today the young man's life would come to an end. Zhongwei told himself that he should only delay Wang Yu for a couple of minutes so that the teacher would arrive and the impudent man would be finished. The young man asked if the old man had recovered from the last time he taught him a lesson. Old Zhang did not listen to him, and turned around and ordered his subordinates to grab both of them. Wang Yu smiled and said that it just so happened that he was just warming up, so he would be happy to teach them a lesson. The young doctor's eyes filled with anger and rage. He made a very sharp jerk. Within seconds, many of his subordinates were crushed by his deft attacks. The pink-haired beauty Ningxue watched on the side as the young man dealt with everyone. She was extremely surprised. All the subordinates of the treacherous old man Zhang Zhongwei were neutralized and were lying on the asphalt. Wang Yu told the helpless degenerate that he was the only one left. Zhongwei panicked and began to think, how could he detain him alone? His legs were shaking with panic, fear literally entered his mind and began to eat away at him. A lump appeared in the old coward's throat. He didn't know what to expect from the young man. Wang Yu looked at the old man a little worriedly, asking why he was looking at him like that. He asked him if he really hurt his head last time. Zhongwei behaved extremely strangely. Suddenly a gentle hand touched the young man's shoulder. It seemed that it was a woman's. It turned out that it was Ningxue. She was holding a wooden bench in her hands and had a melon bun on her head. Wang Yu exhaled a little desperately. Something seemed to upset the young man at that moment. He decided not to waste a minute of time and quickly strike a decisive blow against the insidious enemy. He looked angrily at the helpless old man, without stopping in his way. Zhang Zhongwei panicked even more because 2 minutes had already passed and the master had not arrived yet. But suddenly the young man stopped. Something strange began to happen around. Near him were strange yellow rays. He looked warily from side to side to understand what was going on. All this seemed very strange to him. Turning around, the guy saw a silhouette. He was an inconspicuous and modest man in a black robe and hat. The young guy's long legs gave way a little. The reason for this was unclear. He stood there silently. Old man Zhang Zhongwei, sitting on the asphalt, began to rejoice, exclaiming that Master Yen was finally here. He began to greatly rejoice at the arrival of the great master, shouting that Wang Yu must be dead. Yen asked how Zhang Ziwu, the teacher of the generation of inner masters, taught him this. He wondered to himself if it was possible that he was not his disciple, but perhaps his knowledge of acupuncture points was similar to Zhang Ziwu's. Wang Yu looked into Master Yen's eyes with a stern gaze, asking if he knew old man Zhang. The master was very surprised and asked in a rough voice, since he knows him, is he really Zhang Ziwu's disciple? The young man continued to look sternly into his opponent's eyes, intending to say something, but the young man only called the master a fool, asking why he should be his student if he just knew him. Yen became angry and started shouting, how can he not be Ziwu's disciple if he knows his acupuncture points? Wang Yu called him a fool, saying that he should know that he came to him crying and kneeling, begging the young man to become his mentor. Master Yen turned to the young man, saying that he was talking nonsense, and nothing more than that. He assumed a fighting stance, confidently declaring that he wanted to see if the boy really had the power. The teacher gathered all his strength into a fist, swinging at the young man. His arm span was extraordinary. Wang Yu became wary, saying to himself that the master's strike was far from a very good move. The guy immediately decided to put a block in order to then counterattack the enemy and deliver the decisive blow. He stood confidently and firmly on his feet, and the asphalt under his feet vibrated strongly from the blow of his opponent. Covering his face, the young man said to himself that this old man practiced the Bagua strike. This strike was not only fast, but also quite hard. The pink-haired beauty Ningxue stood aside, very nervous and worried about the young man. The young man remained firmly on his feet, saying he was fine. He managed to withstand the enemy's blow. Yen said to himself that he released 50% of his strength, thinking that it would be easy to defeat him, but it turns out that he can withstand it. He said he recognized the young man's abilities and asked for an apology to the Zhang family, promising to take care of his safety in return. This situation did not suit the hot young man. He told the old man to attack, saying that now they would find out if he could kill him. Wang Yu said to himself that the old man's attack was quite strong. His style of martial arts has been practiced for years. The stubbled, long-haired martial artist asked the boy not to blame him for not giving him a chance. The young man's words deeply hurt the old man. He angrily raised his fist and told the young man to prepare to die. He struck, and a bright yellow light obscured the entire area around him. The yellow light blinded my eyes. The old teacher could hardly stand on his feet. He did not understand at all what was happening to him. He told himself that he had just used 70% of his strength in the punch, but the guy could still move. it was amazing. The strong and fearless young man still stood firmly and confidently on his feet, looking angrily at his enemy. He smiled and looking down said that the blow of the helpless old man was the same as that of a child, it just tickled. The old teacher became more and more furious at the words of the young man provoking him. He shouted that he would never give up. Wang Yu continued to tease him, asking him why he was shouting. After all, in battle it is better not to shout. The angry master swung his fist again, saying that now he would feel its 100% blow. Wang said that he had attacked twice already, so it was time to teach the arrogant old man a lesson. The young man did not waste a minute of precious time. With a sharp movement he attacked the old man. The nimble boy spun the enemy during the attack, so much so that he was unable to resist him. The yellow light from the impact blinded my eyes. The old teacher could not resist the agile guy at all. The blow was so strong that the old man spat out his own blood. He was coughing heavily after the enemy's attack. The pink-haired beauty admired Wang Yu's fighting power. The young man's strength attracted her greatly. Zhang Zhongwei told himself that Master Eren had been defeated, so it was better for her to leave than to die here. Wang Yu asked the old man how he could help such a person do a dirty deed. Eren replied that he was here because of Zhang Ziwu. He was very nervous and asked the boy to immediately tell him where he was now. Wang Yu told him that he was dead, so even if he hated him, he had better forget about him. The nervous old man asked to know where Zhang Ziwu was buried. He confidently declared that he would dig his grave. The young man said to himself that now he wants to know what old man Zhang did to this man, since he wants to dig his grave. The confident young man decided that it was time to end the showdown and go home. He told the serious Ningxue that it was time for them to go home since it was already very late. The girl pressed him close to the young man, answering with a smile that she agreed with him. Wang Yu didn't understand why she was behaving this way. Finally, Eren asked the young man to wait, because he had a question for him. As he was leaving, the young man turned around, asking the powerless old man what else did he need from him. Bowing his head down, the old man asked if he was born with the strength of a king. Wang Yu replied that he was born to be a ruler. The bristly teacher grinned, saying that in that case, it was not surprising that he lost to the young man. Meanwhile, the abandoned building was brightly illuminated by the hot rays of the sun. The weather was beautiful outside. The bandits in black suits had very upset and frightened faces. All three had minor injuries. They stood in one place in fear, not even knowing that a person was heading into their room. Suddenly the door swung open with a kick. The people in black suits were excited. A huge and confident blond man with a patch over his right eye asked them how they could like it. Three frightened men were frightened of the master. The confident master asked why they were in this state. One of the men leaned towards the master, asking forgiveness for the failure of the mission. The captain asked what happened, because they are martial artists. The subordinate said that they carried out his order several times and deliberately allowed the target to escape death without any mistakes. But this time they planned to repeat it, but at that moment someone stopped them from doing so. He told the captain that for 3 blows and 2 kicks they were beaten, and the really scary thing is that he knows that the captain is a trapper. The captain began to get nervous and worried. He asked to tell me something about this man, because perhaps he knew him. The man replied that his strength is very great and he is merciless. Attacking him is the same as entering the abyss of death. The blonde exclaimed that he knew this man, and this must be the man he was thinking about. On his hands were gloves with small spikes. He grabbed his subordinate by the collar. He asked nervously, "Is the man he is talking about handsome?" The subordinate did not know how to answer this question. The angry one-eyed captain asked why he was silent and had his head in the clouds. He asked for an immediate answer. The man replied that this is true, he is also a master, but his strength has nothing to do with his beauty. The captain was sweating from nerves and excitement. He said to himself that if this is so, then it must be him. He let go of the collar of his subordinate's shirt and began to think about everything that was happening. The blonde said he knew it had to be him. He had to get out of here quickly before they were found. The nervous one-eyed leader ordered his subordinates to hurry up as they too had to leave. The 3 subordinates were in a stupor, because the trapper, with the title of the King of World-Class Special Forces, was so scared. Suddenly, someone knocked on the wooden door of the room. This was the one they all feared. Wang Yu entered the room and said that it was too late for them to run away. The trapper fell into a stupor, having his back turned to him. The young man, standing in the doorway, smiled and asked where he was going in such a hurry. The one-eyed Special Forces King title holder turned around, fearfully asking how he knew he was here. Wang Yu smiled and said that it was easy, because he did it through the person he pointed his finger at. The young man recently attached a small tracker to the collar of one of his subordinates. The captain asked what he wanted. The young man, with his back turned to the captain, began to think about what he really wanted. He turned around with a grin, saying that he hadn't stretched his bones for a long time. He asked the trapper if he would help him with this. The one-eyed captain became very nervous, his eyes were bulging and beads of sweat were running down his face. He exclaimed at the top of his voice that this was impudence. He also asked how he could only intimidate people with violence. Wang Yu asked him if he could respect his profession a little, since he is a mercenary, doesn't he always want to kill? The captain clenched his teeth tightly, holding back the outbursts of his anger. He didn't know how to respond to the young man's provocations. Suddenly, he shouted at the top of his voice that he was refusing. The subordinate's eyes widened in shock. Wang Yu scratched his ear with a dissatisfied face, telling the one-eyed captain that he had not decided. He asked him if he was ashamed to give up without even trying. The blonde replied that he was not ashamed and that he was not giving up. The subordinate advised the captain to fight, because it was too awkward. In response, the trapper only asked him to shut up. Wang Yu, holding his hands in his pocket, exclaimed to stop this farce and get ready. The excited one-eyed trapper scratched his head, saying that he really wanted to attack. The young man grinned slyly at the blonde, saying that he had had enough of all this idle chatter. He smiled and said that he wanted to feel his attack first before he retaliated. The trapper gritted his teeth and clenched his fists tightly, telling himself that if he didn't fight, he would die. He planted his feet firmly on the floor, confidently shouting at the young man to be ready for his blow. He gathered all his strength into his fist and swung at Wang Yu with all his might. The young man was ready for anything. He remained calm and coolly dodged the blow of his one-eyed opponent. His signature smile lit up the fight. Wang Yu decided to strike back as he managed to dodge. He gathered all his strength into his fist. A second later, an uppercut hit the blonde's chin, after which he could barely stand on his feet. The trapper asked the master to be more gentle. Wang Yu told Li Zhenyu that he didn't think they would meet again, and he was still weak. The subordinates of the one-eyed trapping captain watched the fight, calling it impossible. Wang Yu and Li Zhenyu were lying on the grass in the open air, enjoying the beautiful sunset. The blonde asked the young master why he came to Gosu. The young man replied that he was looking for him. The captain asked what happened. He wondered to himself, did the master know that Xiao Xianting's parents were connected to his father's death? Wang Yu asked why he was dealing with this woman. He said that he knows that he always lets her escape. The trapper gritted his teeth and ordered himself not to tell the master the purpose of this mission, otherwise he would lose everything. The young master looked at the blonde with a serious look, asking if he really couldn't answer. Li Zhenyu smiled and said that he was just a mercenary and did not know the purpose, but he asked the young man not to worry, because he would kill the man who gave the task. Wang Yu stood up and asked him to be careful not to cause any trouble. He said that he also had business with him and asked the mercenary to find out if his father's death had anything to do with Li Seimi. Li Zhen desperately said that they knew nothing about this mission if the original plan was to only bring back one. Wang Yu looked at the one-eyed trapper with a serious look, asking him not to persuade him. He said that for years, his instinct told him that Li Seimin and his father's death were somehow connected. Li Zhenyu told the young master that he would help him clarify this issue. Wang Yu rose to his feet. He grinned and thanked the one-eyed trapper for his kindness in helping and responsiveness. The young master lightly patted the blonde on the shoulder, telling him to go home and rest. The one-eyed trapper and the young master went in different directions. The sun was already setting behind the horizon. But after they separated, the one-eyed Li Zhenyu took out his phone from his pocket. He called Li Seimi. He asked him a little excitedly if the death of the young master's father, Wang Yi, was related to him. Old man Li yelled at him, asking why he would search for the truth for years if it was his fault. He also said that the mission planning team died this year. All who are left are Su Yanting's parents, who are still intact. The one-eyed trapper apologized to Li Seimi, saying that he should not have doubted him. The old man said that maybe his young master had a deep misunderstanding, and if possible, he would definitely explain everything to him. The trapper said that he need not worry, because the task would be completed. Li told him to stay in Gosu and he would return to China. The next day came. The huge multi-story building was illuminated by bright sunlight. It was only in the afternoon that young master Wang Yu returned home. He pressed the doorknob, pulling the door open. Entering the room, he was a little blinded by the bright sunlight. It all seemed strange to him. From the room, he heard a familiar female voice call him a fool. The young man stood in the doorway. The beautiful Ningxue sitting on the chair asked where he went last night. She was sitting in a short skirt. The wonderful hips of the charming girl immediately caught the young master's eye. Looking at the girl's curvy hips, Wang Yu said that she should wear a longer skirt. Ningxue smiled and said that she promises that she will not wear a short skirt, but if he likes it, she will wear it in front of him. The sweet girl's charming hips beckoned. Wang Yu tried not to be tempted, saying that he did not want to see it. The girl said that she knows that he really likes to see this, since everything is written on his face. Ningxue covered up her cute grin, saying that the young man even blushed with embarrassment. Wang Yu did not succumb to her provocations, remaining silent. The girl even began to cry from laughing. But suddenly, the young guy's mind was blown away. He exclaimed that if she laughed again, he would beat her. The sweet beauty began to apologize with tears in her eyes, admitting that she was wrong in this situation. Wang Yu gritted his teeth with a dissatisfied face, saying that all this was just complete nonsense, and she need not worry. At that very moment, he asked Ningxue if she was familiar with Gosu town. The girl wiped away her tears with a smile. Ningxue, wearing an adorable short skirt, sat on a chair before starting a conversation with the guy. She took off her stiletto sandals to give her feet some room to breathe and take a break from the shoes. The girl confidently said that she already knew Gosu, since she had visited almost all the local places. She flexed her toes, saying in between that, unlike the young man, she knew the city. Wang Yu calmly told her that this was all very good, since that was what he needed. He told the girl that she would accompany him somewhere. Taking her hand, the girl asked him to wait, because she was without shoes. The guy let go of the cute girl's hand, giving her the opportunity to put on her shoes and continue walking. She angrily called the young man a degenerate, saying that they could continue on their way. The streets of Gosu town were brightly illuminated by the sun's rays. The weather was beautiful outside. The girl in heels and the modestly dressed young man continued to walk to the place he needed. Finally, they arrived at the appointed place. It was a luxurious house, occupying quite a large area. Ningxue asked the guy in surprise, what would he do here? She called this place very cool. From the courtyard the mansion seemed much larger than from the outside. The yard was decorated with fluffy trees. Wang Yu said that he once went to a place that seemed like hell. Worse than this. The girl was shocked and asked what kind of terrible place this was. It was unpleasant for the young man to remember this, but he replied that it was Africa, namely Somalia. He began to say that in that hellish place he lost his brother. In the flashback, he stood in military uniform at his brother's grave. Ningxue was shocked by his story. She opened her mouth in deep surprise, remaining silent. The girl felt very sorry for Wang Yu. She hugged him tightly from behind, saying that all this had passed. With particular surprise, she asked the young man why he was here now. Wang Yu replied that he had a brother who was injured on a mission in Somalia while rescuing him. The young man said that he came to Gosu to find him. The young couple noticed the man in the cap. Ningxue suggested contacting him. Approaching him, Wang Yu asked the old man smoking a pipe if he knew where Hao Jia lived. The blue-eyed old man looked sternly at the young man, asking who he was and what he was doing here. The man thought he was familiar. The young man paid tribute, smilingly saying that he was a soldier like him. The man said that they were comrades in arms, so he advised not to look for him, so as not to create problems. Wang Yu told her uncle that he just needed to tell him where Hao Jia lived, and he shouldn't worry about other things. The old man, holding a pipe filled with tobacco in his hands, told the boy that the house of the person he needed was located in the east in the third row. But to himself, the old man with a small gray beard said that after he finds out, he will definitely regret it. The young man decided not to waste a single minute of precious time and went in search of Hao. The beautiful Ningxue, walking through the swamp in heels, asked the guy if his comrades in arms really lived in a place like this. Wang Yu was still serious and did not answer her. He stopped and said that Hao Jia should be here. Ningxue asked excitedly how he could live in such a place and would he receive compensation from the government for his war injury. A loud male voice could be heard calling someone a stupid soldier who should die for the birth of his country. The girl told Don Hajin that she could no longer live with him, because he donated all the money from the state to help his families of the victims. The man shouted at her, saying that his friends were dead, their children were orphans, and their wives were widows. They needed this money more than he did. Ningxue said that it seemed like people really lived here. She admitted that she had gotten it all wrong. His wife asked Kajin if after he resigns, will he really give them money from the state again? Don replied that it would be so. The woman said she knew he was always thinking about other people, but what about her and the children? Wang Yu knocked on the village door. His wife cried, saying that he couldn't even pay for his tuition. Hajin asked her not to cry, that he was a soldier and would not let their country fall apart. The young man Wang Yu stood in front of the wooden door, listening to the scandalous conversations of the married couple with a serious face. He asked Ningxue if she understood everything now. The excited girl covered her mouth, saying that she understood everything. Under a clear blue sky stood a house in which a married couple lived. Bare tree branches hung over the roof of their house. Hajin's wife was worried and asked her husband what they should do since the tax collector came and knocked on the door again. The man slammed his fist on the table, telling his wife not to be afraid, because he would not allow her and the children to be intimidated. From the slightly open door came the voice of a young guy who asked Don Hajin to come out. A blue-eyed, short-haired man in a turquoise shirt asked his wife to open the door, saying that it was the boss. The frightened woman immediately followed the advice of her beloved husband and opened the front door. She looked excitedly into the young man's eyes, inviting him to enter the house. Don Hajin sat on a chair, looking at his boss and barely holding back his tears. He was indescribably glad to see him. Wang Yu hugged his comrade in arms tightly and could not hold back his tears. He said that they had finally met. Ningxue said to herself with a smile that she used to think that brotherhood was always being together, but after seeing this, she realized that brotherhood is something sacred. Blue-eyed Hajin looked into his boss's eyes, asking a little worriedly why he was here. Wang Yu asked the young man why he was hiding in such a place. Don asked for forgiveness. The boss admitted that he had been looking for him for years. He told his wife that he heard everything she said to his brother. He asked if they really thought that giving all the money to the family of the deceased was noble. Wang asked Hajin if he believed that by doing good deeds he was hiding his identity. Does he think he will be remembered as a hero for this? Don Hajin tearfully said that he doesn't care about fame and fortune, because he wants to make his heart better. Gritting his teeth from pain in his soul, he said that all their comrades were dead, and while he was alive, he must take care of his family, otherwise his heart would not calm down. The wife of the blue-eyed man burst into tears at the words spoken by her beloved husband. She shared her husband's pain and her soul also ached. The woman immediately began to walk towards her husband in order to hug him. She tearfully hugged the sobbing Dong Hajin, asking for forgiveness for what she said earlier as she was too worried. Looking at the man with a serious look, Wang Yu asked if he had ever thought about how difficult it would be for his brother to have a conscience. Blue-eyed Dong Hajin looked at the floor with tears in his eyes, saying to himself that he had never thought about it. The boss handed the young man a black card, saying that it contained $500,000. Hajin, wiping his tears, asked his boss what he was doing and why such sacrifices on his part. But the noble Wang Yu still handed him the card, saying that he did not need this money. The boss ordered him to take it, asking if he was a soldier. Hajin replied that he was a soldier who had spent his entire life serving him, Wang Yu. The young master held him by the turquoise shirt, asking the young fighter what is a soldier's duty. The blue-eyed soldier said at the top of his voice that a soldier's duty was to obey the orders of his superior. Commander Wang Yu said that in this case, he orders the young fighter to take this money for himself. The soldier stood in a combat stance, looking at his commander. His eyes were wide open. He nevertheless touched the black card with money, which was handed to him by the boss standing in front of him. Hajin immediately told his wife standing next to him that he would send these to his friends' families a little later. This greatly infuriated the commander standing next to him, so much so that everything seemed to turn upside down in his head. He angrily told Hajin to get rid of his feelings for them, because everyone who was alive had helped them for years, and their families were fine. Don Hajin continued to sob. he said to himself that he just wanted him to take the money and fix everything. Wang Yu turned to the fighter's wife with a sincere smile, saying that this money was gratitude from their brothers. The girl began to cry with joy, expressing deep and sincere gratitude to the young man. Wang also said he heard them talking about debt collectors. He asked the woman if they had a problem with it. Don Hajin became very worried. He tried to convince the boss that they had no problems with this. A man's voice could be heard from the street, shouting to Hajin that if he didn't pay today, his house would be destroyed, because he had owed it for 3 years already. Wang Yu looked at the fighter with a serious look, asking, "Is this really what he calls no problems?" The blue-eyed young man rubbed the back of his head, telling his boss that it was just a small favor. The young boss exhaled as the conversation with the fighter was getting nowhere and it was making him a little tired. He asked Hajin's wife to tell us more about this problem. The woman was very excited. She said that Dong Hajin was injured at that time, he needed money for an operation, and they borrowed 30,000, thinking they could pay it back. The woman said they now owe more than 200,000 and are being threatened. Ningxue asked, "Isn't this extortion?" Wang Yu was absolutely calm and smiled and told the frightened woman that she needn't worry, because he would sort it out. A few seconds later the wooden front door was opened for them. The young man was ready for a showdown with the extortionists. A stern man, accompanied by 2 subordinates, asked if he really dared to show himself. After he saw the young man, he abruptly fell silent, because he was perplexed by what he saw. The perverted glances of the extortionists fell on the luscious thighs of the charming Ningxue. The girl looked at them angrily. The chief debt collector asked Hajin where there was such a beauty in his family. He said that if he gave it to him, the debt would be paid off. The words of the pervert tore down the tower of an attractive girl. She angrily screamed for him to console himself. The extortionist just smiled and said that he was inviting her to have fun for a while. He asked if the beauty agreed to this. His calmness and words irritated the pink-haired girl more and more. She called him a shameless degenerate. Don Hajin, who was sitting on the chair, hit the table with his palm as hard as he could, because he was tired of all this. He screamed at the bastard Shun guy to watch his tongue, otherwise he would rip it out for him right now. The bristly extortionist just grinned and asked, "Does trash like Hajin really dare to threaten him?" He angrily declared that he would sell his beloved wife to a brothel. The woman was very scared. These words infuriated Don Hajin. He called the extortionist a bastard and a scoundrel. He looked at the bandit furiously and was ready to destroy him. Rising from his chair, he began to walk towards the enemy. But then the short-haired man, who wanted to stand up for his family, fell to the floor. He screamed with all his might that he would kill Xiong Gai and his henchmen for everything they had done. The scoundrel and his guardsmen mocked the man, calling him a dog with a broken leg. Suddenly, the cold-blooded boss decided to intervene in the showdown. He turned to the extortionist with a small smirk. Continuing to smile, he told Xiong Gai that it seemed his tongue was too long. The arrogant scoundrel asked who he was and immediately ordered him to get out of this house and mind his own business. But Wang Yu was not a fan of meaningless conversations, so he immediately swung his leg sharply. He delivered a side kick directly to the groin area of his talkative opponent, thereby immediately closing his mouth. The stunned Shun Gai was dumbfounded and began to sweat, without understanding anything. But after just a few seconds, his loud cry of pain was heard almost throughout the entire village. The vile extortionist fell to his knees and began to cry in pain. He complained of severe pain. One of the subordinates said in fear that the sound was like broken eggs. The second one said with fear that it was clearly painful. Shun Gai ordered them to close their mouths, not say anything, and kill this youth as quickly as possible. One of the vile bandits' henchmen picked up a bat, believing that he could deal with the man. Wang Yu kept his hands in his pockets while keeping his mind completely calm. He calmly looked into the eyes of his opponents. One of the frightened bandits said that one look is enough to understand that he is very trained, so they must be careful. Enraged, Shun Gai ordered them to act quickly and kill him. For this he promised them $100,000. Standing at the head of the guardsmen, he ordered them to immediately begin reprisals against the insolent young man. A bandit in a black sweatshirt swung an iron bat at the cool-headed young man, who stood motionless. It all didn't end with just the extortionist. After him, degenerates of the same mind began to attack. They were ordered to kill the young man. On a branch of a green tree growing nearby, a sleeping and plump yellow bird was sitting. At one point, she opened her eyes in fear and bulged out, because she heard loud human screams. There were very loud screams throughout the entire valley from people who had been beaten by a cold-blooded young man. There was a drop of the opponent's blood on Wang Yu's cheek. He beat the blonde man who wanted to kill him until he bled. The powerless enemy fell in battle with a cold-blooded but very strong man, who struck him down with ease. The rest of the extortionists were stunned by his strength, wondering what kind of person he was. Don Hajin's wife held her husband's hand. He opened his eyes slightly and was surprised. Squinting one eye, the man happily said that his boss was as strong as before. The man's wife continued to hold him. While wiping the blood, Wang Yu asked him, if he weren't like this, how could he have fun with them? The remaining bandits were very frightened and decided to waste no time in running away from home. They ran headlong with all their might towards the exit in order to remain alive and whole. The nervous Shun guy shouted after them that they were cowards and bastards worse than dogs. He understood that his end was not far off. The brazen extortionist lost the support of his subordinates. A copious amount of sweat immediately began flowing down his face. The cowardly Xiong fell to his knees, covered his head with his hands, and began to beg the young master not to beat him. Wang Yu, with blood on his cheek, leaned towards the cowardly extortionist, smilingly saying that he would not hit him. The vile and cowardly bandit was still worried and sweating, but the gentleman's words calmed him a little. But at that very moment Wang Yu asked the scoundrel whether he really believed his words. Shun Gai immediately became even more nervous. A blow was immediately struck in his face, with the words that he had insulted Xing Ningxiu, and she was a beautiful woman and would not forgive him for this. He also said that the degenerate dared to insult the soldiers. Soldiers are holy and cannot be insulted by trash like him. The force of the young master's blow was crushing. The impudent extortionist fell to his knees. Shun Gai asked, although he is really strong, can he always protect them? He threatened that when he left, they would all definitely die. Don Hajin and his beloved wife were disturbed by his words. They looked into each other's eyes. Ningxue was very worried and asked Wang Yu to stop, because murder is bad. He asked her not to worry, promising not to fool around. The young man squatted down and asked the extortionist if he knew who Hajin was. The bristly bandit with a disgusting face replied that the man was a simple soldier. Wang Yu said that he completed 1 first-level mission, 3 second-level missions, and 7 third-level missions, receiving rewards and becoming a true hero. He also told the extortionist that he did not pay him because he did not want to burden his country. With his hand on the powerless bandit's shoulder, the young man asked if he ultimately knew what he was doing now. Sweating and choking in panic, Shun Gai asked for forgiveness, admitting he was wrong and promising to never bother them again. The cool-headed Wang Yu took a step back, saying that he could go. Xiong kindly agreed to leave. Scared half to death, the extortionist began to quickly leave the house of the soldier's family. Van looked after him. Immediately, the pink-haired, charming beauty Ningxue ran towards the noble guy. She hugged him tightly and tearfully called him very cool. The girl said to herself that she could finally understand the interest in the soldiers. Wang Yu stroked his sweetheart's hair, quietly saying that he had to do this. Wang was in a huge training complex equipped with a lot of equipment. A charming slender girl was doing cardio exercises on a treadmill. Suddenly she interrupted her exercises on the simulator in order to discuss something with the young man. Su Yanting asked Wang Yu, because he said that he was going to go somewhere. The girl was holding a towel in her hands to wipe off the sweat. The young man smiled at the girl, saying that he would go to Yen Jing tomorrow, and had already purchased a ticket. Wiping sweat, the slender yellow-eyed beauty asked why he wanted to leave so suddenly. Wang Yu replied that he had done a lot of things in Gosu and also solved his problem. Now he needs to go to Yen Jing to resolve some matters. Su Yanting was sweating while holding a glass water bottle. She closed her eyes a little upset. But with a smile on her face, she told the young man that if he wanted to meet, he could come to Gusa. Wang Yu smiled playfully at her, promising to definitely stop by if he was still alive. These words greatly confused and made Su Yanting worry. She looked at him warily, asking what he meant. Van smiled and said that it was nothing and advised her to rest, because it was late and she must be tired. Su Yanting continued to worry about the young man after the words were spoken. She asked him to wait. She extended her gentle hand, asking the young man not to leave, but he didn't listen. It was as if all the positive emotions had been washed away from the girl's face. There was sweat and disappointment on her face. She desperately lowered her hand because she couldn't muster up the courage to tell him what she wanted. But Wang Yu was still in the room, with his back turned. He asked before he left if she wanted to say anything. The slender, yellow-eyed beauty literally froze in place. She still couldn't muster up the courage. Having almost said the desired words, she still chickened out and remained silent. It was as if there was a lump in her throat with fear. Ultimately, she, with a slight grin, told the young man that he had better rest and said goodbye to him. Wang Yu had no emotion on his face. He quietly said goodbye to her. The girl followed him with her gaze. The cold-blooded young man said to himself that fate had decreed that he and Su Xianting should separate. Leaving the room, the emotionless young man saw a female silhouette in the shadows. In front of him stood the beautiful Ningxue, who seemed to be waiting for the young master in the corridor. She looked at the floor innocently and a little embarrassed. Wang Yu smiled playfully at the pink-haired beauty, asking what she was doing here. The girl looked at the floor upset. Ningxue looked into his eyes, her mesmerizing red eyes filled with tears. The young man began to stroke her head, asking why she was crying. He ran his hand over her tender face, wiping the tears from her charming eyes. The crying sweet girl clung tightly to the guy, asking him to promise that he will not die and will return to the living. Wang was shocked. Patting her on the head, he said that he just wanted to find a quiet place to stay and spend his years in peace. But there were also some nuances that prevented him from finding complete peace. He remembered himself crying at his brother's grave. He told the girl that the things he was dragging along were preventing him from doing what he wanted to do. Wiping her tears, Ningxue asked, then, having done what he wants, will he return to her? Wang Yu smiled and said that she understood everything correctly. He stroked the girl, asking her to calm down and go to bed. The pink-haired beauty watched her loved one go. He left without looking back. She quietly called him brother and grinned a little after him. The girl had pain in her soul. She still wanted to cry, because separation from a loved one is not easy. Beauty Ningxue gave vent to her emotions. She fell to her knees in the same room, starting to cry. Meanwhile, Wang Yu was already at the airport in Yen Jing. Those around him looked at the young man with a little excitement. The reason for the perplexed glances was that the young man, for some unknown reason, was wearing a gas mask. Those around him, their eyes bulging in surprise, wondered why he was wearing a gas mask. Wang Yu said to himself that he would come back suddenly this time, and was sure that people from the major families would be worried about his appearance. But before the unexpected and stunning appearance, the young man decided to have lunch at a restaurant. He pulled off his gas mask, deciding to enjoy a delicious lunch before starting work. While drinking soda through a straw, he told himself that he still needed to find a place to live first, and then act. But suddenly, something strange disturbed her pleasure. He looked to the side. A small frightened child with tears in his eyes begged his unconscious grandfather to come to his senses. The man lay motionless. The people around were scared. One of them said that the news showed how people helped unconscious people, and they slandered them. The long-haired man in the red shirt smiled and said that he now doubts that the man was really hurt. A small child in tears convinced people that they were not bad. He tearfully begged to save the man. The long-haired man looked at the boy, saying that there was no one here who would believe him. But suddenly Wang Yu stood up for the baby, who shouted very loudly that he believed him. He remained calm and calmly walked towards the child in order to help his loved one. Approaching the unconscious old man, he squatted down to check his pulse. He felt the old man's pulse, hoping to feel it. The people around froze. The young doctor said quietly that this old man was almost dead. The child became even more afraid. He fearfully asked the uncle standing next to him if he could save his grandfather's life. Wang Yu smiled at the cute child, saying that he could be sure that he was a doctor and could save his grandfather. The doctor asked those around him for a needle, as well as lighter, more disinfectant paper. A slender blue-haired girl with green eyes responded, saying that she had it, but there was one nuance. The girl handed over the needles, saying that they were the only ones she had. Wang Yu told the girl that this would be enough. The young specialist took a gasoline lighter from his pocket. He began to heat the needle with the fire of a lighter. After heating, the young man used disinfectant paper and wiped the needle with it. Slowly and remaining calm, the young specialist began to bring the needle closer to the old man's forehead. The man in the red shirt was frightened by this action, shouting, does he really want to kill the old man? One of the men told her it was traditional Chinese medicine. The woman replied that this was nonsense and was sure that the old man would die at his hands. The old man was still unconscious. Wang Yu's hand continued to move towards his forehead. He said the bleeding could be stopped by acupuncture and moxibustion, and could then be treated with Western medicine. The doctor handed the box of needles to the girl and said that now the old man's life was not in danger, all she needed to do was call an ambulance. The owner of a wonderful body was deep in thought. She found it strange that the doctor was leaving. She said to herself that if what they say is true, this old man may die due to carelessness, and the reputation of her restaurant will be ruined. Wang Yu smiled at the girl, saying that she needn't worry because she just needed to send the old man to the hospital to get some medicine. The man in the red shirt said he thought he was a liar too. After all, the old man simply had a headache, and he immediately began poking him with a needle. Wang Yu silently called this man vile because he continues to impose his negative thoughts on others. He wanted to beat him up. The arrogant and disgusting long-haired man smiled, asking the doctor if he really had nothing to say. The young doctor did not succumb to the idiot's provocations, and in response only called him an idiot. The scoundrel immediately grabbed his hand, asking loudly who he dared to call a moron. The cool-headed Wang Yu warned him in a calm tone to immediately let go of his hand. The arrogant geek continued to smile, saying that he could not leave before giving an answer. But unexpectedly, the young doctor grabbed the vile man's hand, asking if he was really looking for death. Smiling, he said that since he looked down on Chinese medicine, he should feel its horrors. The man was no longer so brave and complained of pain with tears. Wang Yu said with a smile that it was easy for him to break his arm. The people around looked at everything that was happening with their mouths open in shock. There was silence in the room. Wang Yu stood in front of the kneeling impudent man, telling him to go to the orthopedic department. Someone exclaimed that the old man had regained consciousness. The doctor wondered to himself, how could he do this if his condition was terrible? The little boy was happy about this, happily telling his grandfather that when he lost consciousness, this man saved him. The old man with a gray beard thanked the young doctor with a smile for saving his life. Wang Yu smiled, saying that it was his responsibility. The elderly man asked if the young man could leave his phone number, but the modest doctor smiled and replied that it was not worth all this, because, as his idol said, good deeds must be done without a name. He said to himself that he had stayed too long here, so he had to leave quickly, otherwise it would interfere with his true goal. Going outside, the young medical specialist noticed a car speeding away. A young man got out of another luxury Audi and shouted that the old master was needed immediately. Wang Yu said to himself that this old man has power and he should quickly leave before something happens. Xiao Wu breathlessly told the old master that he would punish him if he disobeyed him again. The old man asked for forgiveness. Wang was stunned by what was happening, saying that apparently this old man was the head of the family. He said with a sly smile that he was accidentally ignored by a man with great power. Meanwhile, the courtyard of the Lin family manor was illuminated by a bright and soaring sun. The weather was beautiful. The remaining leaves fell from the bare branches of the trees. A slight wind was blowing through the trees. The old man was enjoying the weather by playing checkers outdoors. He moved a white piece on the playing board. An old man with glasses was straightening his long and gray beard, enjoying a game of checkers. Suddenly, a sweet and slender girl approached the elderly man from behind. She turned to her grandfather. The old man became a little wary. He asked Kinger why she was here. Didn't she go to Gosu? The girl sincerely smiled at her grandfather, saying that she missed him very much, that's why she came to him. Kinger looked at her grandfather a little upset, asking if he didn't like it when she came to him. But the old man stroked his granddaughter, saying that he was very glad that his beloved granddaughter missed him. The girl smiled. The old man told his dear granddaughter that if someone offended her, she should tell him, and he would teach the offenders a lesson. Kinger's dear granddaughter touched her grandfather with her palm, as if wanting to tell him something. She tearfully said that a few days ago her father asked her to go on a blind date, but no one met her, and she waited in Gosu until nightfall. Grandfather wondered what kind of child would dare treat her like that, and how dare he reject his beloved granddaughter. Kinger said she sent someone to follow him and it turned out he was dating two girls. The old man hit the table with his fist, asking her to tell him his location. He promised to definitely teach a lesson to the one who offended her. A spark of surprise seemed to ignite in the girl's eyes. she told her grandfather that her abuser was going to Yen Jing. The elderly man played with his gray beard while thinking about the city of Yen Jing. Kinger confidently told her grandfather that on this occasion, she would even go to Yen Jing with her grandfather. The girl began to twirl her hair on her finger, while smiling insidiously. She understood that she could deal with the offender. Wang Yu was in Yen Jing city at that time. He sneezed very hard while in the establishment. He wondered to himself if someone was remembering him again. He called it a great sin. The young man asked the waiter to bring him 2 bean juices, 1 plate of donuts, a plate of fried liver and soup. After a short period of time, the young man's order was served hot. The hungry young man was drooling. He decided not to hesitate and start eating, picking up wooden chopsticks. Suddenly, a chic black limousine stopped near the establishment, its headlights sparkling. It turned out that he stopped right next to the table where the young doctor was sitting. Wang Yu, suspecting nothing, began to eat. The door of the black limousine opened. A man in a business suit began to get out of the car. The man approached the young man's table. He told Mr. Wang that his employer wanted to see him. Wang Yu told him that he just arrived in Yen Jing yesterday, and they can't sit still. He wondered if he should go to the meeting. A stern-looking man told him that his employer said he should come and see him. The cool young man wiped his mouth with a paper towel, asking what if he didn't want to go. The stern man put his hand on his shoulder, answering that in that case, he would force the mister to obey. Such impudent behavior alarmed and embittered the young man, who did not harm anyone. He immediately grabbed the impudent man's hand and began to squeeze his hand at the wrist with all his might. The sneaky short-haired geek decided to start a fight by trying to hit the young man, but the deft Wang Yu remained calm and managed to dodge the blow of the vile bandit. After dodging, he struck his opponent with stunning force. The man was thrown several meters. The force of the blow threw the bandit in black towards the car from which he had exited. The bandit's business suit crumpled from the impact. He looked at the young man with his mouth open. Wang Yu asked if he really wanted to force him with such force. He also said that he needs to practice for at least a few more years. The young man began to calmly leave the scene. The man turned to him. He said his employer told him that after the youth saw the photo, he would go with him, and if he does not do this, he will be considered a cowardly boy. The man took out a photo of a beautiful blonde. The cold-blooded Wang Yu went wild at that moment. He asked if he didn't want to go, that meant he was afraid of his employer. But when he saw the photo on the man's smartphone, he said to himself that if he had shown the photo earlier, maybe he wouldn't have beaten him. Meanwhile, the old master was in a private hospital. It was already getting a little dark outside. In the old master's room there were doctors who were stabilizing his condition. The old man nervously shouted to be let out immediately, because he had already told them that he was fine. The gray-bearded elderly man assured that he would not shoot at them. He wanted to leave the hospital. Suddenly, an unknown person knocked on the old man's room. It was a gentle woman's hand. A luxurious beauty in a short white skirt entered the room. Her hips were immediately noticeable. The beauty asked who he wants to shoot at. The gray-bearded old master desperately told Kaching that he was completely fine. He was tired of the walls of the chamber. The girl said that although he was saved, this does not mean that there are no other symptoms, so he will be able to go home in at least a week. Dripping with sweat, the old master asked the girl if he could go out earlier, because lying in bed he felt crazy. Kaching asked him displeasedly, how could something like this happen if he was only in the hospital for 1 day? The old man despaired and scratched the back of his head in frustration, saying that he could not argue with her, and would stay here for a week. The old master asked Xiao Wu in a calm tone if he knew any information about the young man who saved him yesterday. The slightly excited young man answered the master that his name was Wang Yu and he was the son of Wang Chenyi. After hearing this, the old master and the beautiful Kaching began to sweat. This news stunned them. Meanwhile, Wang Yu followed the man who came to pick him up. There was wind outside, yellow leaves were flying around. The black luxury limousine in which the young man was traveling stopped in an unknown place. The driver turned off the engine and the cool young doctor got out of the car. It turned out that they had arrived at an unknown construction site. Wang Yu asked what kind of place this was. The man illuminated a small area of asphalt with his headlights. There was no one around except them. But a sniper was watching the young man from a high floor. The sniper rifle was ready to fire. The blonde in the red buff and dark tactical glasses smiled as she saw the young man. The man who brought the young man said that his employer ordered him to be brought here, so he doesn't know anything. After a few seconds, he pressed the gas pedal with all his might, as if he was afraid of something. The man left the place. Wang Yu was a little surprised, not understanding why he left so quickly. Is there something wrong with this place? But unexpectedly, the young man became very wary, his eyes bulged, and there was a strange feeling in his soul. Beads of sweat ran down his face from nerves. He told himself that he felt some incomprehensible and strange feeling. The bad feeling did not let the wary young man down. He heard a loud shot. The bullet was flying at him. The clever Wang Yu was incredibly lucky because the bullet hit the asphalt. He jumped aside. A large number of cracks appeared in the asphalt after a bullet hit it. The young man managed to remain unharmed. The evil killer went berserk after her failure. She continued to look into the scope of the sniper rifle. The girl was not going to give up and leave her goal. She pulled the trigger of the rifle again. Again the bullet hit the asphalt, thereby creating cracks in it. The nervous young man decided that he urgently needed to hide. Another bullet fell a few centimeters from the young man's leg. He was extremely lucky, but at one point, a stray bullet nevertheless flew through the young man's sleeve, slightly cutting the skin of his shoulder. The out-of-breath young man ran away from the bullets with all his might, so as not to fall into the hands of the enemy. The girl did not give up trying to destroy her target, continuing to fire shots in his direction. Looking through the sight, she screamed that she would allow him to escape, but they would still see how he got out of it this time. Out of breath, Wang Yu said that the sniper's range is 2,000 meters, but all four sides are open, and he has no chance. Frightened, he shouted to the killer that he was not afraid of her at all, but on the contrary, he wanted to deal with her. The evil sniper girl gritted her teeth and screamed, "Does he really think she will give up?" Another huge bullet flew out of the barrel of a powerful sniper rifle with lightning speed. With all his might, the young man screamed that everything was very bad and he was dying. This was supposed to help him defeat the enemy. The killer looked through the scope, seeing a young man lying on the asphalt without signs of life. The blonde was very scared when she saw this. She told herself that she didn't want to do this at all. The frightened girl immediately put down her sniper rifle, deciding that she needed to immediately go and inspect him. She didn't understand what was happening at all. The girl quickly walked towards the young man. Approaching Wang Yu, who showed no signs of life, she squatted down to examine him. She began to carefully examine almost every part of his body. The frightened girl said that there was no blood from the hit. She didn't believe it. The girl placed 2 fingers on the young man's wrist to check his pulse. He was downgraded. After that, the killer put her finger in his mouth to assess his breathing. It turned out to be weak. Licking her lips, the excited girl decided that artificial respiration needed to be performed. After hearing this, Wang Yu began to rejoice in his heart. He said to himself that this is where she got caught. The charming blonde approached the guy with her lips to begin the procedure. The young man quietly placed his hand on her waist. He decided not to hesitate and take advantage of the chance given to him. Wang Yu grabbed the girl's head and kissed her on the lips. When he began to kiss her, the girl was indescribably shocked. She realized that he had taken advantage of his chance. She hit the asphalt with her hand, because her anger knew no bounds. This behavior seemed unacceptable to her. The beautiful blonde looked into the eyes of the young man with her charming bottomless eyes. Something incomprehensible was happening in her soul. She bit her lower lip lightly. The sensations were incomprehensible. Everything that happened confused the girl, since she was still lying astride the young man. The beautiful girl gazed into the eyes of the attractive young man, remaining silent. She flattened Wang Yu's cute cheeks. The guy was pleased with the kiss and smiled sweetly at the beauty. Suddenly he moaned with pleasure. The pleasure was so strong that he closed his eyes. The charming blonde was flushed with discomfort. Her wary look at that moment was indescribable. The red-faced girl immediately became indignant because the pervert Wang Yu was behaving inappropriately. She jumped up and pointed the gun at him, frightenedly telling him to move away from her immediately. The guy tried to calm her down. The girl burst into tears and screamed that now he would turn into a corpse. She turned her gaze to the floor. She did not move the pointed pistol to the side, and at that very moment, with her eyes closed, she sharply pulled the trigger. Wang Yu was very nervous and panicked. Sweat ran down his face from fear, but the bullet missed him. A loud shot was heard, frightening the birds in the area. A copious amount of foam flowed from the young man's mouth. The girl decided to open her eyes in order to make sure what she had just done. Reluctantly, she opened her left eye, holding the gun in her hands. The girl's gaze was serious. She put the combat pistol in a leather holster, saying that this guy, he's crazy lucky. The young man lay on the asphalt cracked from gunshots, he missed and the bullet missed him. The professional killer decided to leave the scene. She put the sniper rifle in a special suitcase. Having put away her military weapon, the girl closed the black suitcase until it clicked. She was about to leave. But suddenly, Wang Yu, lying on the asphalt, regained consciousness. He raised his head. The young man slowly opened his eyes, trying to understand what was happening around him. His head hurt a little. Suddenly the young man began to remember what was wrong with him. He thought about the most important place for men. Immediately his gaze became very wary, because he realized that he could lose his main dignity. The young man immediately jumped up and began to grope for his main male dignity, hoping to feel it. After a few seconds, the young man exhaled with relief, making sure that everything was in order. Suddenly the young doctor burst into tears because he realized that he was on the verge of life and death. Bursting with tears, he began to sincerely thank God for being alive. His luck was incredible. The assassin was wiping her combat pistol and, with her back turned, said that he should be grateful to her. Turning around, she looked him sternly in the eyes, saying that if the gun had been loaded, he would have spoken completely differently. A nervous Wang Yu asked Long Yin if he had gone crazy, because he could have died. The girl was told that in ancient times none of the eunuchs died. The young man was very angry with the blonde. He couldn't find the words to express his anger. But suddenly, he exhaled with relief, saying that she was not serious about this. He asked what brought her here. The blonde told him that she came here to find out why he left 3 years ago, without even saying goodbye. Wang Yu thought seriously as he scratched his chin. He began to reflect on the events of past years. Soldier Wang asked Li Seimi why he put him on a mission with a girl. The old man asked if he was discriminating against women. The soldier replied that he was so handsome that it could happen that after the task 2 people would not be able to control themselves and would become 3. Li Seimi looked at the young man in bewilderment, saying that he need not worry, because the girl would not fall to such a level. Dissatisfied, Wang Yu asked what does it mean he won't fall before this, is he really questioning his skills? The young fighter hit the table with his palm, saying that in this case, he would take on this job. A confident young soldier told the old man that he would make the girl fall in love with him. Meanwhile, the sun was bright over the military base, but at the same time, the sky was slightly cloudy. Young soldier Wang Yu was preparing to go on a combat mission. A camouflage bag lay at his feet. Suddenly he opened his mouth wide in surprise. It looked like his jaw might fall off. He saw a girl hugging the waist of a charming beauty just like her. It turned out that his new partner was doing it. The blonde ran her finger along the chin of the purple-haired beauty. Wang Yu felt a lump in his throat. He was very nervous because he understood that he was unlucky, because he was not of her orientation. The sun was shining brightly over the site of the military operation. All combat reserves were on edge. The faces of the 3 soldiers were serious and extremely wary. Something strange was happening in the area. Suddenly the blonde girl realized that it was an ambush, because she was surrounded by a crowd of strong men. She was ready to fight them off, shouting that all this was complete horror, because these bastards surrounded her. Suddenly, a man in brown combat boots loudly stomped on the stone, attracting attention. The confident soldier shouted for the crowd of healthy men who had abused the young girl to come up to him in order to sort it out. The gray-bearded soldier looked back and gave the young man a stern look, saying that he would do as he wished. At that same moment, the reckless soldier fired a pistol shot at the young man. The guy immediately fell down. The young soldier's partner was very scared for her comrade. She didn't know what to do in such a situation. The gray-bearded soldier ordered his comrades to see if the boy was alive. He said the boss wants to take him alive. Wang Yu lay on the damp ground with his tongue hanging out, showing absolutely no signs of life. But at one point, he smiled evilly, as if he was plotting something against the opponent standing nearby. Suddenly he grabbed one of the opponents by the leg. The soldier was stunned by this, but did not have time to react. The deft Wang Yu jumped up and began beating his opponent with all his might. The charming partner was shocked. She watched in admiration as her handsome and strong partner dealt with the enemy. The girl decided not to stand in one place and join the massacre. She threw a sharp kick. With an accurate hit, she knocked the pistol out of her opponent's hands. the weapon flew into the air. In flight, the military weapon was deftly intercepted by a charming and quick girl. She reloaded her weapon. Pointing the gun at her opponent, she smiled evilly and said that it was time for him to go to hell. The crowd of opponents standing in front of her was greatly shocked by this turn of events. Everyone was leaking sweat. Several loud shots were heard. With 3 precise hits, the girl eliminated 3 soldiers. She turned around and excitedly asked her partner Wang Yu if he was okay. The young fighter stood by the tree trunk, trying to catch his breath after a very difficult fight with the enemy. The young man opened his mouth wide and breathed heavily. He still couldn't breathe. This seemed very strange. Wang Yu looked really bad. He firmly pressed the area of the body near the collarbone on the left side. The young fighter continued to breathe heavily, barely remaining on his feet. The wound was deep. The wounded young man fell powerlessly, holding onto the wound. He was completely paralyzed and could not move. The frightened girl ran up to her wounded comrade, begging him not to die. She said everything will be fine. Hardly having such an opportunity, the young man said that he would not live long. He asked the girl to fulfill his last wish. He touched the sweet girl's tender face. She said with tears in her eyes that she would do whatever he asked. She had a hard time saying that he was so old, but had never had a girlfriend, so could she give him a kiss? The girl was shocked. Holding the wound, the soldier said that in this life he could only die, but in the next life he would do everything. The girl, barely holding back her tears, clenched her teeth tightly. She tried to find the strength to kiss him. She suddenly grabbed his cheeks, still daring to give him a kiss. At that same moment the girl kissed her dying comrade. The young man was shocked by her action. He was stupefied with embarrassment. He was very embarrassed, because he did not even expect that such a beauty would agree. With a smile on his face, the dying fighter threw his head back and lay down completely on the ground. He understood that his end was being worked out. The girls lay astride him, watching how his face changed. Wang Yu smiled more and more with happiness. The girl's kiss had a healing effect on his body. The soldier said he felt amazing. This made the girl angry. With a sharp movement she reached for the machine gun lying nearby. The determined and angry girl reloaded the machine gun. There was a loud reloading click. She looked sternly at the young man, still sitting on him, and asked if he wanted her. Frightened, Wang Yu said that this was not true at all. As he sweated, the wounded soldier convinced her to believe that he was really dying. Looking angrily into his eyes, the girl said that in this case, she would make his task easier and send him to heaven right away. In a panic, the frightened young fighter Wang Yu shouted to the entire area that there was a killer here and he needed help immediately. But everything turned out to be completely different. It was deep night, but the sky brightly illuminated the earth with a huge number of stars. Receiving a huge dose of pleasure and proud of himself, the young soldier stewed the bowl in the ashtray. On his curvy body lay a charming blonde, who pressed her head tightly against him. Wang Yu was very pleased with himself. He told himself that he was so charming and sometimes admired himself. A few months later, the young man was in a luxurious estate. The weather was wonderful outside. Wang Yu knocked on one of the doors while inside a luxurious and huge mansion. Entering the room, an elderly man stood in front of him. The calm young man understood that a serious conversation was about to take place. A man with wrinkled skin saw a young man enter the room and calmly exhaled. He looked at him with a little seriousness, saying that since he and his granddaughter had become lovers, they should get married as soon as possible. The old man was very worried, saying to himself that his granddaughter had finally fallen in love with a man, and she couldn't miss this opportunity. This made Wang Yu a little confused. He told the old man that he and Long Yin had known each other for less than 6 months, so it was too early to get married. The old man answered the young man that he did not think so and would take care of their marriage. He asked him to come back and explain everything to his parents. Frustrated, Wang Yu almost began to cry with sadness. He didn't need all this at all. Leaving the office, he began to think about how to avoid the wedding. Taking his phone out of his pocket, he said that there was only one way to avoid marriage. Walking along the corridor, Van called Old Lee, loudly declaring that he was going to the African Republic. All these memories of past events made the young man sweat. Dripping with sweat, he looked into the dissatisfied eyes of the beautiful Long Yin standing in front of him. Coughing, Wang Yu told her that it was difficult for him to answer her question about why he left 3 years ago. The girls made a sharp jerk towards the young man, and, grabbing his collar, angrily forced him to speak. The young man was a little nervous and smiled at the girl. He asked if she really wanted to hear. His behavior and smile irritated Long Yin, and she decided to intimidate him by loading the gun. Frightened, Wang Yu raised his hands up, telling her that if she didn't do this, she would become a eunuch. He said it was all because of what her grandfather said. After what was said about her grandfather, Long Yin's violet bottomless eyes opened wide in surprise. She understood everything her grandfather had to do with this story. Tears flowed from the girl's charming eyes. The girl immediately pressed herself close to the young man, asking if it was his grandfather who made him leave. Hysterical, she called Wang Yu a fool, saying that he should have told her about this and she would have talked to her grandfather. She asked why he was silent. The guy replied that he thought they needed to stop talking about this topic. The girl looked displeasedly into the guy's eyes, reminding her that she had already said that if he didn't tell her, he would become a eunuch. Wang Yu confessed to Long Yin that when her girlfriend asked him to marry her, he was so scared that he couldn't help himself and ran away. The consciousness of the young beauty was clouded with anger and anger. It was as if a mask had fallen over her eyes. With a scared smile, Wang Yu asked Long Yin if she was okay. The girl was silent for some time. After a few seconds, she said quietly that he only had 10 seconds to escape. The young man began to panic and became very agitated. He asked the girl not to get excited. The young man began to run away with all his might, shouting at the top of his voice that they wanted to kill him and he needed help. While driving the car, the girl asked the guy how he saved Qin Imin yesterday. Did he do it on purpose? After hearing this, the young man became very excited. Sweat began to run down his face and his hands were shaking. Could it be that the person he saved was Qin Imin? Surprised, Lan replied that he saved him and left the place. Wang Yu painfully wondered why he pretended to be such a good person who did good deeds without leaving a name. The young man asked Long Yin if Qin Imin would recognize him if he visited him. The girl, driving the car, said that he did not need to rush, because he was looking for him in the capital, and this would only benefit them. Wang Yu tried to put on a smile, telling the girl that the words she said did not make him feel any better. Long Yin stopped the car and looked at the young man and said that it was time for them to go, because her grandfather wanted to see him. Van was scared to death. He smiled in panic, asking if he was kidding him. He asked what her grandfather needed from him. The beauty looked at the guy in bewilderment, asking if he really thought she was joking. Wang Yu stuck out his tongue while scratching the back of his head. Reluctant to go to her grandfather, he asked if he could jump out of the car. But the deceptive beauty Long Yin was determined and was not going to joke with him. The girl put a gun to the boy's head. Holding the barrel of the gun to the guy's temple, she shouted for him to try to jump out. The young man was very afraid. Wang Yu nervously shouted to her that it would be like that. He said that Lan too would kill him anyway. A red luxury car stopped at the main entrance of her grandfather's palace. It was night. The estate looked luxurious and was illuminated by lanterns. The roof was covered with expensive-looking tiles. The young people entered the estate. There were a huge number of stars in the sky, illuminating the earth. The young man drew attention to a pumped-up man practicing a punch. The man during the training looked angry. He gave his best. Wang asked Long Yin, "What are these people doing here?" The girl replied that this was a training ground, and the soldiers were here waiting for her grandfather's instructions. Wang Yu said that as he sees it, these soldiers are very lucky because they can receive advice from the old man. One of the men looked at the young man and asked, "Isn't this the little prince who left Yen Jing for many years?" The thug said that he could no longer call him the little prince, because he was a crappy dog and the descendant of a traitor. These words infuriated the cold-blooded Wang Yu, but he did not show it. Smiling insidiously, the young man thought through tactics. The young man clenched his fist tightly in anger, loudly declaring that this idiot had no right to insult his father. Smiling in the enemy's face, he confidently declared that his father is a hero, so no one dares insult him. Frightened, Long Yin understood what the consequences of the fight could be. She covered Wang Yu with herself, preventing him from striking. The young man was surprised. The girl looked at Long Tang angrily and told him to shut his mouth. But the scoundrel only smiled slyly, calling Wang Yu a bastard, who is also called a war hero. He called it funny. Long Yin gritted her teeth and angrily told Tang to keep his mouth shut. The insolent man's behavior irritated her. But the young man replied that she should keep her mouth shut, because in the future he would be the head of the family. In anger, Long Yin asked, Does he really think that with an attitude like his, grandfather will allow him to become the head of the family? Long Tang smiled, saying that she had no right to comment on the position of the head of the family, because she was a woman who would get married and leave the family. Wang Yu wearily watched everything that was happening. Those around him looked at him, asking each other, is he really the king of war? The young man walked away without looking back. People behind him were discussing that he looked more like a toothpick and looked like ordinary garbage. But at one point, the young man confidently asked Lan Tang if he was very proud of his skill. The young man looked at him, saying that soldiers are warlike, they are proud of their skills. Wang Yu smiled insidiously, inviting him to fight to see how good he was. He said that now Tang will answer for all his words. But the young man only smiled and asked him to notice that he himself suggested it. He threatened to beat him so hard that he would lose face. Those around him shouted that Wang Yu didn't even know who he was challenging, and Brother Long wouldn't leave a wet spot for him. The cool doctor put his hand in his pocket, not showing any emotion of fear. He was ready for battle. He smiled insidiously in the face of his enemy, angrily shouting at him to attack immediately. Long Tang decided not to waste a minute of time. He made a sharp jerk, shouting that the guy was definitely a corpse. But at one moment, he suddenly fell into a stupor. His eyes were filled with surprise and sweat was running down his face. The reason for this was that the enemy turned out to be indescribably fast. He was trying to figure out why the hell he was so fast. But while the young master was in thought, Wang Yu ran up to him with incredible speed and clenched his fist tightly. Just an instant later, a stunning blow was struck on Long Tang's jaw. The force of the blow was infinitely enormous. The enemy was thrown into the air and sent flying several feet. Wang Yu only looked at his fist after that to make sure that he was not injured. Everyone around watched in horror what was happening. No one expected this from a modest boy. The cool-headed Wang Yu approached the unconscious Long Tang. The young man was motionless. The young man approached the enemy and firmly stepped on his head. The guy screamed in pain. Wang Yu's eyes were cold. Looking at the enemy, he calmly asked, "What will he do now?" The young man made a smart face, saying that it seemed more appropriate to use trash to describe Long Tang. Suddenly, an old man appeared who said that he had come to find out who this daredevil was who dared to cause disturbances in the house of the Lan family. Long Yin turned around excitedly. She was very frightened by the appearance of her grandfather, and asked why he was here. Wang Yu then said that it had become too noisy here, so it was logical that someone had told Mr. Lan everything. Yin whispered to the young man to agree to everything his grandfather said. She said that Lan Teng should have been beaten, but he was still a family member. The young man scratched his head, saying that he was glad that Mr. Lan was calm, otherwise he would have gotten into trouble. Yin said that all families are worried about reputation. Two men watched from the sidelines, exclaiming that Mr. Lan was here, so the guy was definitely dead. Old man Lan was very serious and silently held his hands behind his back. Nobody knew what to expect from him. The elderly master began to slowly move forward to sort things out with the young man, but at one moment, having taken a step, he removed his foot, and a trace of his foot remained in the asphalt. This was very surprising. Wang Yu was wary and said to himself that the old man was very strong and was overwhelmed with qi energy. The young man immediately took a stance, greeting the master with honor. He introduced himself as Junior Wang Yu. The old man called him a bastard, saying that he should have shot him 3 years ago, but now he dared to come to his house and offend his grandson. Master Lan was determined. He wanted to kill the young man. Long Yin took his hands to calm him down. She told her grandfather that Lan Teng was the first to provoke him, and Wang Yu got angry and offered to compete. Moreover, Teg was the first to hit him. Grandpa Lan asked his granddaughter with a small grin if she had really fallen in love again since she was protecting him. People around said that it is not surprising that Long Yin favors this guy. It turns out that she likes him. The sweet beauty's cheeks turned red from embarrassment. She asked her grandfather what he was talking about. The master asked her not to interrupt. He told Wang Yu that even if it was his grandson's fault that he beat a person from the Long family, it could not be forgotten and could affect their reputation. The young man smiled at the master. He asked what the respected master was going to do with the younger one. The old man looked angrily into the young man's eyes, confidently declaring that he would be his opponent. Long Yin was very surprised and wary. She understood how all this could end. She couldn't stand still. It got to the point that she tore her heels off the asphalt in order to challenge her grandfather's decision. Yen began to dissuade her grandfather, saying that he could hurt the young man, and even though she doesn't care, he can't do that. Master Lan didn't attach any importance to the word girly. He told his beloved granddaughter to get out of the way. Long Yen was very nervous, looking into her grandfather's eyes. She told herself that he had decided to teach Wang Yu a lesson. The girl began to think, what should she do? The young man standing nearby grabbed the nervous girl's hand. He saw all her excitement. He looked into her eyes and said that if he hid behind her, he would only make Long Tu look down on him, so he had to fight. After stroking Long Yin's hair, he asked her not to worry, saying that he had an ace up his sleeve. The girl smiled sweetly, saying that she believed him. Master Tu lightly bit his fingers and pondered the young man's behavior. He showed no emotion. He told the young boy that he didn't think he had the courage at all. The old man admitted to underestimating the boy. Wang Yu said that in fact, Master Long had always been an idol in his heart, and it was an honor to be able to fight him now. The old man displeasedly asked the young man whether he really thought that his cheap flattery would save him. The young man was very nervous, but did not show it. He told himself that the old man was definitely going to kill him, but gathering all his strength into a fist, Wang Yu loudly said that in this case, it's time to start. The young man took a fighting stance. Immediately he made a leap from a low start. There was an intimidating atmosphere in the area. The young master's special techniques were no worse than those of the old man Lan Tu. Bright colors flashed around. A few seconds later, the young man reached the old master with incredible speed and was ready to strike. The cold-blooded old man stood still and showed absolutely no emotion. He waited for the young man to make a move. Master Lan Tu was a martial arts professional. He was waiting for the right moment. At the last moment before the young man struck, he offered his strong fist. It was as if an invisible line had formed between the rivals. At one moment, two fighting elements merged. There was a loud explosion and everything around shook. The blast wave was enormously powerful. Wang Yu was thrown aside by the blast wave. He landed on his back in a pile of rubble. Those around were stunned by what was happening. Sweat ran down each person's face. Everyone said to themselves that Master Lan Tu was incredibly strong. Master Lan stood calmly in place, holding his hands behind his back. Everyone was amazed by his actions. But there was a little confusion in the old master's head. He assessed his opponent's abilities. Holding his hands behind his back, he told himself that this guy was a good actor, because he didn't even touch him, but he flew away. Frightened, Long Yen ran up to the young man, asking if he was okay. Wang Yu tried to get up and asked her not to worry. She yelled at her grandfather, saying that this was too much. The girl asked how can he be so cruel. Old man Lan Tu was at a loss, but did not show it. He didn't understand what she was talking about, because he didn't even lay a finger on him. Wang Yu told Long Yen that she need not worry. The young man only asked the girl to help him get up. Yen agreed to help him. The guy asked her not to rush. The girl looked at him in surprise. The young man took advantage of the wonderful opportunity and pressed his cheek to the girl's tender breast. The enraged Master Lan Tu spat out blood. The frightened young man shouted that the master's power was beyond their understanding. The master clenched his teeth angrily and began to look at the floor. To himself, he called the young man a bastard. People around deified the master. Lan Tu raised his hand and ordered Lan Teng to be taken to the hospital. The old man announced that they were done for today. He said it was time for them to go back to the courtyard because he wanted to say a few words to this guy. Long Yen refused to do this. While enjoying the girl's breasts, Wang Yu told her that he would not do anything since he had just won and lost his reputation as an elder. With a bloody nose and a wide smile of pleasure, the young man asked Lan Tu if he was right. The old man, with his back turned, admitted through gritted teeth that this was indeed true. The anger in his eyes was indescribable. Long Yen threatened her grandfather that if he harmed Wang Yu again, he would not receive forgiveness. Tu promised that he would not do anything more to him. The girl believed her grandfather's words. She turned around and told the young man that she would be waiting for him in the courtyard. The young man smiled at her and easily waved his hand, saying that he would be there soon. He became very excited looking at the charming figure of the slender and sweet Long Yen. When she left, looking after her, he could hardly stand on his feet. The young man's mouth almost began to salivate from admiration for the girl. Suddenly, old man Lan Tu appeared next to him. Wang Yu became very wary and wondered if this old man had teleported to him. Lan Tu grabbed him by the collar, saying that he thought he had a conscience. He said angrily that he would like to kill him with a slap. The old man lifted the crying youth above him out of anger. The guy said that if he did anything to him, he would scream. The young man added that his granddaughter Long Yin was not far away. Long Tu looked at him angrily and remained silent. But at one point he yelled at the guy, saying that today he would let him go only because his granddaughter supported him. The boy put 2 fingers to his chin, showing that he was thinking. He told Long Tu that he thought he had already done something. The old man bulged his eyes with particular surprise, looking at the young man sitting in front of him. He asked what was he talking about. Wang Yu said that he always says that he beat his grandson, but he himself took advantage of him to teach him a lesson. With a dissatisfied face, the guy said that he did everything as the old man wanted, but he still swears at him. Master Lan Tu grinned, telling the young man that everything can be as he says, but where is the evidence? The young man told the old master that during his argument with Lan Teng, he simply stood aside, and he didn't even dare to go out before his victory. Wang Yu asked the old man if he really thought that he would go unnoticed. Lan Tu said that he must admit that he is very smart and has good eyesight, and he could save his face if his grandchildren were the same. The young man blushed with discomfort, scratching the back of his head. He smiled and told Mr. Lone that he was embarrassed by him. The old man said that he would not reprimand him, but asked what this circus was for and why he did not fight him. Men nearby were discussing the confrontation between the 2 men, saying they admired Master Lan's strength. Wang Yu said that Long Tu has been wanting to beat him for 3 years, but now the young man is truly on his own and doesn't need any extra problems. The young man added that since he didn't need it, then why on earth would he beat the master? Lan Tu looked at the young man angrily. His words angered him, but he couldn't find the words to express his emotions. Smiling, Wang Yu said that everything worked out well, and these youths will remember the great and invincible Master Lan for a long time. At that very moment he asked the youth if he was right. The young guys shouted with one voice that Master Lan is a divine master. Old man Lan Tu coughed and said quietly that if he were his grandson, everything would be different. Wang Yu smiled and said that his family was one of the most influential. Lan Tu said that this is indeed true, but his grandchildren's generation is too weak. He also said that as a young man, Long Teng could only observe disappointment. I wonder who will be able to take over the management of the family? Wang Yu tried to cheer up the old man, telling him that someone would be found, and the family would find a guide. He asked what he would do now. After all, in order to inherit the leadership of the Lan family, you need to be a member of it. Divine Master Lan turned his gaze to the young man with a slight insight, as if considering his candidacy. He looked closely at the neat young man who smiled and also looked at him. The young man was a little nervous and with a smile told the old master that it was time for him to leave. He grinned and asked Lan Tu to drop the topic. He also said that he was hungry and suggested that we eat first. But unexpectedly, the old man grabbed his shoulder, thereby stopping the young man. The old divine master wondered, how come he hadn't thought about his candidacy for the headship of the family before? With a smile, he said that he had a good idea. Wang Yu warned the old man not to do anything stupid, because this was not discussed. The young man straightened his shirt and coat. He said with a dissatisfied face that he was not a member of the Lan family. He was very angry, so when he exhaled, it was as if steam was coming out of his nose. He said to himself that he really wanted to leave. Lan Tu told the youth not to try to escape, otherwise, he will call Long Yin right now. After hearing this, a lump appeared in the young man's throat, and sweat started running down his face, because he understood the consequences. He imagined Long Ying's brutal behavior if she found out about what was happening. In his mind, she is shooting at him with a machine gun. Frustrated, Wang Yu wished the old man to be healthy and said that he hoped that everything would be fine with him. The cunning Lan Tu at the same moment called his beloved granddaughter. The frightened young man asked him not to do this, promising to discuss everything. The old sly man said to himself that the fish took the bait. He said out loud that the young man was thinking correctly. He immediately patted the young man on the shoulder, making it clear that he was pleased with his behavior. He asked the boy to let him tell him not to be so stubborn, because taking on this mission was not so bad. Lan Tu said that he knows that the purpose of the young man's return to China is revenge. Having become the guardian dragon of China, he will realize it. After the words were spoken, the young man fell into a stupor. He was surprised, because the old man knew the purpose of his return. Wang Yu said that being the guardian of the Chinese guardian dragon meant that he would be the chief guardian of that great man. A spark of desire lit up in his eyes, but he told the old man that as soon as he took on this task, he would lose his freedom. Lan Tu asked with a little bewilderment, "Is freedom more important than the country?" He asked him to hurry up with his decision. The guy looked at him warily, saying that he was too alarmed. He asked if he was hiding something from him. The old man tried not to show any emotion, asking the young man what should he hide from him. Confident Wang Yu asked if he really thought he was afraid of him when he was staring like that. The dissatisfied young man gathered his hands, confidently saying that he was staring at him, and it was up to him to believe it or not. Old man Lan Tu smiled because the young man's words seemed funny to him. He assured that this was not the case at all. Wang Yu said that in fact, even if he doesn't say it, he can probably guess it. The old man asked what he guessed. The guy smiled and said that if he was not mistaken, now Long Yin's father is the keeper of the dragons. He asked if he was injured. After hearing the words, the old divine master literally went wild and stood in a stupor. His gaze was fierce. At that same moment, he sharply reached out with his palm to the young man's neck. The guy didn't understand what was going on. Old man Long Tu grabbed the young man's neck tightly and began to squeeze it. Wang Yu was perplexed by his actions. Gritting his teeth from severe suffocation, he asked the old man whether he had really gone crazy to resort to such a thing. Lan Tu continued to squeeze his neck tightly, viciously, and at the same time calmly, looking into his eyes. But at one point, he decided to pull himself together. The old man breathed a little sigh of relief. At that very moment, he released the young man's neck, which was red from suffocation, giving him the opportunity to breathe enough. The young man began to draw air into his lungs, holding his neck. He asked the old man what was the matter with him. The old man turned his back to the young man and remained silent. The guy got angry after his actions. Holding his neck, which was red from being strangled, he loudly called Lan Tu a stinking old man. Wang Yu could not control his anger and desire to take revenge on the old man for what he had done. He straightened his palm. The young master clenched his fist so tightly that his shirt sleeve tore. He was ready to strike the decisive blow. The young master decided not to waste time. At that same second, he swung and struck with his fist, but the old man blocked it. The force of the block was enormous. The young man did not fall, but slipped a little on his feet. The young man stood firmly on his feet. Old man Long Tu was just as angry. He was ready for a decisive battle with the young master. Holding his shoulder, he looked menacingly at the young opponent. He said to himself that this bastard is cruel. Wang Yu looked at the old man angrily, saying that he actually had the nerve to fight him. The young master decided not to waste time on empty talk. He got into a fighting stance and was ready to strike. Incredibly quickly, he made a dash from his spot, moving towards the old divine master. As he ran, the young man raised his fist to deal a fatal blow to the old man Lan Tu, but the cool old man stopped the young man's blow. He just raised his palm, thereby stopping him. At that very moment he grabbed the young man's wrist tightly. After that the guy was powerless. He asked the aggressive and angry boy if he was really angry with him. The young man had not yet realized what was happening. With a wicked smile, he asked how could he not be angry when old man Long Tu was trying to kill him. The old man told him that he couldn't be angry because they were both murderers. Moreover, he has unraveled the secrets, so he cannot close his eyes to it. Tu said that countries hostile to China would send the strongest experts to kill their Chinese dragon at any cost if the secret was revealed. Wang Yu looked into his eyes with a serious look, asking how he, a Chinese soldier, could spread information. Lan Tu said that there is no guarantee that he will resist the temptation of his enemies. He asked to be allowed to make sure that they would not break him and he would betray the country. These words greatly angered the young man. He stated that since the old man was trying to insult him, he was ready to fight again. The old man asked the young man to let him know what martial arts he practices and who his master is. Wang Yu confidently lied that he was a born ruler and had no master at all. These words shocked the old divine master. He looked at the guy with great surprise. At that very moment he grabbed the young master's head, trying to feel for something. The young man was sweating. At one point he jerked sharply to remove the old man's hands from himself. He asked in bewilderment what he was doing. Lan Tu said that the guy has amazing physical characteristics, a powerful aura, a good rudiment, ideal for learning martial arts. He put his hand on Wang Yu's shoulder, smilingly asking him to recognize him as his teacher, and then he would teach him what he knew. But to the old master's kind request, the young man gave a firm and convincing refusal. These words stunned the old master. He asked why he was refusing, and did he know how many people asked him to become their teacher. Wang Yu said with a smile that he once met an expert who begged him days and nights to become his student, but was refused. Having examined the old master, the young man said with slight disgust that he was even a little worse than that expert. These words greatly alarmed the old master. She asked with a serious face, "Who is this expert?" The young man said with a confident smile that this master was Zhang Ziwu. He asked the old man if he had heard of him. Lan Tu immediately became wary, because he understood who it was. He was very surprised. The old man exhaled desperately, saying that in this case, he was no match for Zhang Ziwu, because he tried and lost. Lan Tu asked the brat why he didn't agree to the master's proposal. Wang Yu said that his martial arts were too bad. The old man began to guess to himself that it looked like this guy was scolding him. His face was as serious as before. He said that despite his talents, Wang Yu discovered that as soon as he exerted his strength outside his body could not bear it. Long Tu added that internal and external skills are two types of martial arts skills, and if he is willing to strengthen them, no one will be his opponent. The interested young man asked the old master if he had any internal skills suitable for him. The old man replied that they exist, but he is afraid that they are not as good as the skills of Master Zhang Ziwu. At that very moment he added that he still wanted to know why the young man refused to study with Master Zhang. Wang Yu was a little worried. He replied that the fact is that he practices Chongyang Tongji Gong, namely a cultivation technique. Old Master Long Tu looked at him in bewilderment. The young man, with sweat on his face, tried to smile at him. Meanwhile, the bright sun was shining over the Zemchuzny airport. A large number of cars were on the roads. People in the area communicated in a familiar environment. A breathless man in gray camouflage clothing could be seen at the airport. The man stopped to rest because he was tired from the road. His legs sank into thick boots. It turned out that it was a confident-looking one-eyed trapper. He was dressed in a gray military uniform. The one-eyed captain heard the sound of a suitcase behind him. A man in a green uniform was rolling a suitcase. The blonde immediately turned around and saw old man Li Seimi heading towards him. With a smile, the mustachioed old man asked the trapper if Wang Yu had caused him any trouble this time. Scratching the back of his head, the trapper smiled and said that the boy Wang Yu went to the city of Yen Jing. This made old man Li furious. He shouted and asked the blonde, "Doesn't Wang know how dangerous it is for him to go to Yen Jing now?" Li Seimi made a hasty decision. He ordered tickets to be booked immediately as he had decided that they would be going there too. He said to himself that Wang Yu really offended the trapper, and seeing how nervous he was, the old man thought that the death of his father was not related to the one-eyed man. The Murong family estate was quiet and calm. The crystalline water glistened in the sun. The family's estate looked rich and luxurious. There were many patterns on the walls of the palace. One of the family members was enjoying the warm and sunny day by pouring hot tea into his mug. The man poured a hot drink into a mug, and taking the cup in his hands, moved it to another place. After which, a man with a green patch on his index finger decided to take a sip of the wonderful drink. He said that this type of tea was excellent, but the water for preparation was not the best. Without the best water, the best tea cannot be brewed. With a little despair, he exhaled, saying that he had a small amount of regret for brewing this tea. He took the mug of tea in his hands and poured it out, saying that it seemed like it was time for them to leave. The next sunny and beautiful day arrived. Wang Yu was still in the Long family palace. The young man stood shoulder to shoulder with the old divine master Lan Tu, awaiting his instructions and advice. The old man said that martial arts focus on cultivating internal qi, and it comes from the Dan Tian, formed from inhalation and exhalation. Lan Tu also said that the breathing method is the basis of the practitioner. The energy must flow through the meridians of the body, then circulate and form into cloudy qi. He added that the way it flows along the meridians determines the skill. It is easy for superficial people to develop meridians, so it is suitable for many. Long said that even if the mental skill was successful, the qi would be very weak. If he meets ordinary people, he can defeat them. The old man added that deep mental mastery in gathering qi is very complex and difficult to achieve. This requires understanding. Once this mental skill is completed, the qi collected in the dantian will be very thick, and by adding martial skills, he will become a master. With a serious face, the young man answered the old master that he now understood all his instructions. Long Tu turned around and with a smile asked Wang Yu to look at what he was about to show him. The old man took a meditation pose, saying that the breath passes through Xuanji, Yutang, and finally transfers from the dantian to Taiyu. He added that you need to exhale, and then this will complete the small circle of vital energy, and after the 49th circle, it will complete the large circle. The weather was sunny outside, a light wind blew through the green foliage of the trees, the sky was clear. Lan Tu's lessons continued. The young man had already spent several hours trying to repeat his actions, but everything was in vain. Lan Tu told him with a smile that it was really difficult. The nervous Wang Yu said that he would now show what he was capable of. The master said that it is difficult to practice martial arts. Many people spend several months searching for a lucky circle of vital energy. He looked away and with a small grin told the young man that in his opinion, he would have to spend at least 6 months searching. The young man took a meditation pose, again trying to find a successful circle of vital energy. He opened his mouth, uttering an incomprehensible phrase related to the small circle of vital energy. His face was very serious. The young man closed his eyes and became completely absorbed in his search. For some time he was silent and did not move at all, trying to find the circle of vital energy again. The master stood not far from him. He laughed a little and told the boy not to lose face. At one point, Wang Yu could not stand it and exclaimed that this was very difficult. He's already tired of the fact that he can't do anything. Long Tu asked with a smile, how about just a few of these? Have the meridians opened? The young man replied that only 10 or so had opened. The old man was dumbfounded. He asked if there really were 10 of them. To himself, he called the guy a demon, saying that when he first practiced, he only opened 2. The young man with a dissatisfied face asked the old man why he was looking at him like that. Did he want to call him stupid? Wang Yu said that he admitted his stupidity. He had never practiced his skill. If he did this, the results would be much better than Lan Tu. With a smile, the old divine master told the boy that this was his first time doing this, and the results were very good. He said he was going inside for morning tea, and with the guy's talent, he could complete a small circle of vital energy in a week. Old man Lan Tu turned his back and continued walking to get his morning tea. He smiled slyly, as if he was planning something. The next morning came. The weather outside was lovely. The Lan family palace was illuminated by the sun. There was an appetizing breakfast on the table, alluring with its charming aroma. There are 3 plates in total on the table. Women's legs in beige leather boots were heading towards the table where old man Lan Tu was sitting. Long Yin, entering her grandfather's room, asked him where Wang Yu was now. While enjoying breakfast, Lan Tu replied that the young man was still practicing, but there was no point in doing so now. He said that the internal skill is to inhale clean air and spit out dense air. During the day the air is suitable only between 4 and 6 in the morning. Long Yin listened carefully to her grandfather and said that she would go call the young man for breakfast. Old man Lan Tu continued to eat breakfast and silently looked at the girl. There was a drop of bewilderment in his eyes. The old master finished his meal and decided to enjoy a cup of hot tea in the morning. The door to his room was opened by Wang Yu, who looked tired and out of breath. The young man breathed a sigh of relief. Drops of sweat were running down the guy's face. He confidently told the old master that he had finally succeeded. He confidently declared that he had managed to complete the small circle of vital energy. The old man was stunned by his statement. The old divine master choked on his tea and immediately spat it out in the young guy's face. He asked Wang Yu what he just said. The young man wiped his tea-splattered face. The young man immediately shouted at the old man, saying that if he was jealous of him, he didn't have to spit at him. While the 2 masters were sorting things out, the cute blonde Long Yin watched what was happening with a smile. A cup of tea stood cold on the old divine master's table while the showdown continued. Having calmed down a little, old man Lan Tu asked the boy in a calm tone if he really did it. Wang Yu said dissatisfiedly that it was difficult at first, but then he figured it out. He asked too how long he had been trying to complete the small circle. The old master, dripping with sweat, did not give him any answer. The young man asked him why he was silent. Wang said that apparently it took too longer than him and he was just afraid to say it. he said that he was about to burst with curiosity. The young man did not give rest to the old master. He tried his best to get him to tell the story, but the attempts were in vain. At one point, Mr. Lon too simply could not stand it. He yelled at the young man, telling him to get out. But the young man did not back down and asked why he was so angry. He said he would take a bath first. His behavior angered the master more and more. He was so angry that he said he wanted to shoot the bastard. The young man left the room. Long Yin asked, "What did he say just now?" The nervous old man asked, "Before this kid stepped onto the threshold of their house, did she protect him everywhere?" With his back turned, he told her to change her clothes. He said that a grown girl should not be kept at home. It was a warm and sunny day outside. Wang Yu was already in the courtyard of the Long family estate. The young man was not in the best mood after the scandal with the old man. He walked at a leisurely pace through the courtyard of the estate. Long Yin saw him in the courtyard and asked if he was angry. The guy asked the girl, "Where is the old man?" The girl exhaled heavily. Her face was tired from all these scandals and quarrels. One of the men told Miss Long Ying that someone was looking for Mr. Wang and he was waiting outside. Wang Yu wondered who came to see him. The friendly man said she didn't give a name. It was a woman, very beautiful woman. These words alerted Long Ying. Her gaze was serious and she seemed to be glaring at the young man. Flooding with excitement, Wang Yu then said that the girl came to him, although he did not ask her to come. Moreover, he did not even know her. But the girl's serious look remained as it was. She suspected the young man of treason. The guy asked how she felt about this. He didn't know who came to him. Lon Ing said that a fly cannot fly into a whole egg. The girl confidently stated that she wanted to see the person who was looking for the young man. She came up and took the guy by the hand. The young couple began to move towards the main gate in order to find out who was looking for the young man. Long Ying held Wang Yu's hand, hiding behind him a little. A slender girl in a dress and a red jacket was waiting for him. The charming and sweet girl had her back turned. She turned the young man's head with her beauty. Saliva began to flow from his mouth in admiration. This angered the beautiful Long Ying. She looked at the guy angrily. But the young male Wang Yu did not pay attention to her anger. He watched the girl with a bloody nose. Evil Ing pinched the guy's hand, asking what he even allows himself to do. The guy immediately drew attention to her. The angry beauty pinched him very painfully, so much so that sweat began to flow down his face. He stuttered a little from excitement and told her that he was not doing anything. The girl continued to look at him angrily. The charming blonde Long Ying looked displeased and called the woman a grumpy old woman. Wang Yu wiped the blood from his nose with his sleeve, saying that the beauty was right. She was a grumpy old woman. But an equally charming girl with long straight hair decided to turn to the young couple. The girl looked stunning. She had yellow eyes and dark brown hair. Blood flowed from Wang Yu's nose. He called her the beauty of the Northern Kingdom, and said that there were no words in the world that could describe all her beauty. The girl giggled sweetly and greeted the young man. She asked if he must be Wang Yu. The young man smiled sweetly back at her, saying that everything was right. He was Wang Yu. The guy still admired the girl's beauty. Long Ying was a little worried and touched the young man. The young man told her that he did not ask her for help. The young man was nervous and a little sweat was running down his face. He asked the girl what her name was. The blonde Ing was not at all satisfied with his behavior, and silently continued to pinch him. The girl puffed out her cheeks and said displeasedly that some people are so shameless that they speak completely differently when they see a beautiful woman. She was offended and began to leave. Wang Yu shouted after her that he couldn't be so superficial. The charming brown-haired woman smiled sweetly. She introduced herself to the young man as Kaching Chin. Long Ying was very surprised that she was Kaching Chin. Her beautiful violet eyes opened wide in surprise. Beauty Kaching lowered her gaze while remaining silent. The awkward silence lasted several seconds. Blonde Lon said that it was not surprising that she charmed the young man, because she was the first beauty of Yen Jing. Wang Yu said with a smile that it was no coincidence that this stunning girl was called the first beauty. The young man extended his hand to the cute brown-haired woman. The girl immediately shook his hand in response. Lan Ning asked the girl what she wanted from the boy. The brown-haired woman replied that she was here to thank him. The words that she was here to thank her really struck the cute blonde. She widened her eyes in surprise. The yellow-eyed beauty smiled sweetly, telling the girl that she was Ming Qin's daughter. Wang Yu smiled and said that he understood whose daughter she was. Kaching thanked the young man for saving her father. She said that their family does not remain in debt. She said that she could simply say what she would consider a valuable reward and they would do everything within the means of their family. The girl added that her family will definitely reward the young man, because he did a noble deed. Wang Yu said that he saves people because he is a doctor. Even if her father were a simple man, he would still save him. He said that the word reward was too harsh, he really needs help now, but this kind of deal is beneath him. The young man was firm and decisive. He finished by telling Kaching that she could leave now and not bother. The young man immediately turned his back to her and began to leave. The girl was stunned and did not understand what was wrong with him. The girl was uncomfortable and she bowed down a little, saying that she apologized for what she had just done and said. Wang Yu said that admitting a mistake does not change anything, he will forgive her only for her beauty, this time. Kaching told Mr. Wang that the Qin family should repay his kindness. She made a mistake, but hopes he won't reject their kindness. The girl said that they were going to have a banquet soon to thank the various guests who visited her father in the hospital. She said that Mr. Wang must attend because he is the most honorable gentleman. The word banquet interested the young man. He turned around and asked with a smile, "Does it mean that there will be a glorious feast?" His smile was a little strange. The girl became wary, and a drop of sweat even ran down her face. She wondered if he had understood something. The young man smiled, saying that he would definitely come when the time was right, and he would not neglect kindness. Wang Yu waved his hand and told Miss Qin that if everything was fine, she could come again. The girl was very worried. She was alarmed that she was being kicked out. In Yen Jing, many men would like to be alone with her, but he wants to get rid of her. This made the girl angry. But unexpectedly, Mr. Wang smiled widely, asking the cute girl if she wanted to stay for lunch. The girl struck a pose, joining her two hands under her chest. She didn't like the guy's attitude towards her. Miss Kaching Qin suddenly rushed from her seat, so much so that her hair fluttered in the wind. She finally said that in this case, she would not interfere with them. Mr. Yu looked after her. Worried, Longing told the guy that Kaching looked angry. It was not a good idea for him to make her angry since she was generous. The young man smiled condescendingly, saying that she was not generous, but was simply afraid that he would ask for too much. Ing asked what he was talking about. Wang said that the girl was afraid that he would take the opportunity to blackmail the Qin family. The young man, pleased with himself, smiled. He said that he, Wang Yu, is not that humble. Long Ing listened to the guy carefully and said that now she understood everything. Kaching Qin is more cunning than she thought. She asked the young man, "It turns out they are not going to this banquet?" Wang Yu replied that no matter what, he must go to this banquet. Excited, Ing asked why. She said she felt she couldn't keep up with his train of thought. Wang replied that this was the executioner's banquet. Kaching will entertain the guests who visited her father, aiming Qin. Lord Wang said that there would be famous people of Yen Jing there, even his enemies among them. He added that in this case, Kaching Qin invited him too. If this is not an executioner's banquet, then what? Longing said that even if this woman doesn't want to help him, all this guessing is too much. Mr. Wang Yu told her that it would not harm him and she did not want to help him. He was absolutely calm. Dissatisfied, Ing asked why he rearranged the words back and forth. Was he really mocking her? Wang said that this was not only a banquet for the executioners, but also a test for him. His opponent is strong, and she helped him and contacted these people herself. He emphasized that in this case, she would not try to help him, but if he passed the test, she would sincerely repay him for saving Ming Qin. Beauty Laning was extremely surprised by what she heard from the young man. The girl said that now she understood everything. She said to herself that people like Wang Yu and Kaching Qin have a terrible way of thinking. It's just that one is a little more stupid than the other. Suddenly, Ying and Wang's shoulders collided. The blow was completely unpleasant. The girl asked him to be more careful. She asked the young man if they guys liked such beautiful and smart girls. Mr. Wang firmly and confidently told her that guys don't like this kind of girl at all. He smiled and began stroking the cute beauty's hair, saying that guys like stupid girls. The girl smiled sweetly while he stroked her. She said it was good because he could only love her. But at one point she opened her eyes wide. Although there was a smile on her face, the message of his words began to reach the girl. She screamed at the top of her voice, asking if he really dared to make fun of her stupidity. She spread her arms to the sides. The young man smiled and said that he didn't even know what to say to her, since he was quite direct. The charming blonde screamed at the entire palace of the Lan family estate to go to hell. Meanwhile, Kaching-chin was in the hospital with her father. The appearance of the hospital was mesmerizing, the building was huge. A sweet girl decided to take care of her father. She peeled an apple for him. Min asked if she had met Wang Yu. The girl seemed to have steam coming out of her ears. She told her father that he seemed to be the only one who thought he had a good heart. Min Chin looked at her with confusion. Kaching said she thought he was proud, rude, defiant and arrogant. The bearded old man smiled at his sweet daughter, asking why this guy was so angry with her. The yellow-eyed sweet girl looked into her father's eyes with a little excitement, choosing words for the story. She began her long story. It was getting dark outside the hospital window, but the story continued. After some time, the girl finished her extensive story, while finishing the apple for her father. Old gray-bearded Min Chin listened to his daughter's story. He bit the apple, saying that this guy is not so simple. Sweet Kaching-chin was extremely dissatisfied. She clasped her hands together as the boy's behavior irritated her. She angrily asked her father, "What's so difficult about this? Isn't he arrogant?" The old man was eating a peeled apple. In a calm tone, he said that he was afraid that the young man could see right through his daughter. Kaching asked her father if he really thought that way. Min said that the young man read such intentions from her as from an open book. The gray-bearded old man smiled and said quietly that Wang Chunyi gave birth to a good son. The father's words worried the girl. She couldn't understand why her own father thought so highly of this guy. The sun was shining brightly above the huge high-rise building. Meanwhile, a meeting was taking place there. Several people in black business suits sat at a long table. There was a meeting going on. A confident young man sat at the head of the table with a glass of red wine. He asked Xiao Lu if he was sure that Su Dashao didn't say anything. Frightened, Xiao replied to Lord Lu that Dashao had not said anything. That day he made a cup of tea, drank it and then talked about tea and water. The red wine beckoned with its structure. It seemed thick in Lord Lu's glass. He decided to put his glass down. Lu put the glass of red wine on the table and then straightened his tie. What he heard surprised him a little. He put both index fingers to the bridge of his nose, asking if he had heard correctly, and they were really talking about tea and water. The young man was asked what he meant. One of the men asked the other a question. What did Su Dashao want to say? The blond man in a business suit covered his sly smile with his hands. He was clearly up to something. He asked Lord Lu if he found out what Su Dashao wanted to say with his talk about tea and water. Xiao Lu said that they could not solve the riddle that Dashao had left them, and Lord Lu solved it at that very moment. The man said he thought the next blood exchange would take place in a family alliance. The Lord will definitely be their speaker. The blonde happily said that there was no need to doubt Lu Ye's performance. She was beyond doubt. Lord Lu said to himself that based on his strength, he could become the speaker of the family. But Wang Yu is back, and if he doesn't deal with him, he will be expelled from the council. He raised his hand and declared that we could no longer hesitate and waste time. It was time to start acting. The rest of the staff looked at each other excitedly, wondering how tea and water could be a call to action. The Lord thought about it. If he thought about it, why did Su say that the tea tasted bitter? Because the water is bad. Without normal water the taste cannot be revealed. The concerned employees did not understand what Mr. Lord Lu was leading to. They asked what this meant. He replied that tea belongs to the entire Murong family, and water belongs to them. Dashao wanted to say that if they don't work together, then the water is bad. He said that it was not surprising that Master Su had such concerns. He also asked the others, what would they think when they heard that Wang Yu was coming to Yen Jing? Two family members in business suits fell into a stupor. They stood silently and sweat began to flow around them. The confident leader Lord Lu slammed his palm on the table. He guessed what the others were thinking at that moment. He said that they were afraid of the evidence that Wang Yu was keeping with him. Once he hands them over, their lives will be over. The blonde said anxiously that what happened to Wang Chunyi had nothing to do with them. Now, the Murong family must fend for itself. These words almost drove Lord Lu crazy. His face was extremely serious, but he tried to control himself. He called the blonde a fool, asking if he really meant to say that all these things were given to the Murong family and they acted according to their plans. Lu angrily pointed at the man. confidently declaring that the culprit here was the Murong family, and this had nothing to do with them. Scared to death, the man could not muster the necessary words to object to the Lord. Sweat flowed endlessly down his face. Lu called him an idiot and asked if the Murong family had a clear idea of what happened all these years. The nervous Lord Lu tried to calm down. He decided to sit in a luxurious leather chair. Holding his nose, he said that they were all trying, making efforts to satisfy the Murong family and speculating about their meaning. He asked the excited subordinates if they had made an offer and planned the plot of the year. In order to calm down, the young leader took out a pack of cigarettes with a yellow filter from his jacket pocket. He took the cigarette between his teeth and, bringing the lighter to the tip of the cigarette, lit it effectively. Little by little he began to calm his nerves. Exhaling smoke, he said that more than 10 years ago, Wang Chini and Su's father, Murong Yen and Dai's third son fought for this place. Taking a drag from his cigarette, he continued the story, saying that Murong Yang said that Wang Chini had almost no chance. However, he was so wonderful that he built many wonders and earned many awards. He was known as the god of war. Back then, the Murong family felt an unprecedented crisis, so they, the talents, conspired and helped Yang win the position. From the beginning to the very end, the Murong family did not inspire them to do so, and all because they killed Wang Chini without permission. The subordinates listened to Lord Lu with particular surprise. His story extremely stunned their consciousness. The Lord said with concern that now they have only one way out of this situation. He looked desperately at the floor. He looked at those around him sternly. He said that they should work together, make a clear statement in front of the Murong family. There were sheets of paper on the table with examples of statements to give to the Murong family. The employees raised their hands, indicating that they fully agreed with the leader's decision. Lord Lu said that 10 years ago they were not so strong and could not kill Wang Chini, but now they have more opportunities to kill Wang Yu. The leader's gaze was stern. He firmly and resolutely said that Yen Jing was their territory. Meanwhile, the sun was shining brightly over the longhouse, the sky was clear and blue, the weather was hot. With a confident and calm step, Wang Yu headed to the room where the old master was. The joyful young man loudly told Long Tu that he had finally made it. The young man was out of breath. The old master was sitting in a chair with a cup of hot tea. He asked the young man how he liked Luan Tu. He asked to be called master. The out-of-breath and sweaty young man did not contradict the man. He immediately called him a master. While drinking hot tea, the old man said that he was somehow cheerful. He asked the boy if there was another breakthrough. Scratching the back of his head, the young man replied that he could not break through. There is not enough qi in his Dan Tian. The old man was absolutely calm and continued to enjoy his strong, hot tea. He said that everything was clear to him. But at one moment, when the words spoken by the young boy reached him, he opened his eyes wide with wariness. Out of shock, he choked on his tea again and spat it out towards the young man. He understood how this was possible. The liquid splashed the young man standing in front of the old divine master. He was amazed. The excited master was very nervous, stuttering a little. He asked the guy if he had really used all the qi. Wang Yu asked the master, didn't he say that he felt qi after launching vital energy? He said he started practicing circulation. A little surprised, the boy asked the master why he was silent. Was everything all right? The old man remained silent. Wang Yu was a little scared, and clapped his hands and asked the old master to answer him. Suddenly, Long Tu quietly said that he didn't know at all what to answer the young man. He did not know how to explain this, because his master said that if he began to practice an external skill, he would simultaneously develop an internal one. Wang Yu scratched his chin and, teasing the master a little, said that he probably didn't know anything himself. The old master admitted that this was true because in the past 100 years there had not been a cultivator as talented as Wang Yu. He put his hand on the young daredevil's shoulder, saying that he was gifted, but he still has training to do. After the master's praise, the young man was stunned, asking if he was really good. Long Tu said that his master would be shocked if he saw him. Satisfied with himself, Wang Yu asked to be taught how to use qi. Long Tu asked, since he learned to walk, does he already want to run? He told the guy that when he perfected the circulation of more vital energy, he would teach him how to use qi. As he left, the master said that he could finish his training for today and accompany him to Long Hai. Looking at the old master's back, the young man wondered if Long Tu was really ready to help him. The old man said that since they were both mentors and students, he would help the young man until the very end. He asked the guy not to blame Long Yin, because he was the one who asked her. He is in charge of the entire Long family. The young man said that he was very touched. With a tear in his eye, he smiled, asking the old master, what would he be going to Long Hai after all? Long Tu said that he would take him to Long Yin's father. He is the keeper of the Chinese dragon, and if he wants to be next, he needs to pass his assessment. The young man abandoned this adventure, but the old master smiled slyly, saying that he had a plan. He smiled with confidence, saying that Wang Yu could become a guardian without losing his freedom. These words alarmed the young man. He said that this was nonsense, because this could not happen. Long Tu admitted that Long Zhan has a terrible illness that reduces his strength, so he needs time for treatment, and the young man will replace him during this time. This tempting offer greatly surprised the young man. He said that when Zhan was cured, he would hand over his position to him. With a smile, the master asked how he looked at this proposal. The guy smiled and confidently declared that he was in business. The weather was great in Yuyama. Green trees complemented this charming place perfectly. Lord Lu followed the robed gentleman. He said that he knew that it was a pleasure for him to visit the dry mountain. He also said that he should have sealed the mountain and saved the tourists so as not to disturb Her Highness. The confident gentleman said that although they are people of high position, they cannot make much noise. The man in the luxurious robe continued to walk forward. Lord Lu listened to him, saying that he understood everything. He told him to come back with a report at the end. The Lord paid tribute, saying that he had been informed half an hour ago. His Highness said that immortal Master Long Tu went to Long Hai. Lord Lu immediately became wary. He realized that we were talking about a master. Sweat was pouring down his serious face, and he looked at the floor with a serious look. His Majesty looked condescendingly in the other direction, continuing to remain silent. In his heart, Lord Lu wondered if the Murong family really needed to interfere. What should they do? The man in the robe said that Long Tu took Wang Yu with him to Long Hai. He asked, what does this mean? Lord Lu told the master that he was afraid that Wang had some evidence, so he did not dare to return to Yen Jing. The master remained calm and communicated undemandingly. He asked Lu if he was excited. Smiling, he asked, if Wang Yu really had evidence, would the Murong family really allow him to come alive? Lord Lu's gaze at that moment was extremely excited. Sweat continued to flow down his face from excitement. But at one point, with sweat on his face, he told His Highness that it was exactly as he said. He bowed slightly to the dear gentleman, saying that young people are always smarter, so he believes him. But the serious man said to himself that Murong Su must have sent a secret agent to Wang Yu, otherwise everything would not be so clear. The charming man said that he accepted his feelings. Next year he will have to try hard in the elections. After hearing this, Lord Lu was incredibly happy. He immediately fell to his knees before Mr. Leaning firmly into the asphalt, he bowed his head down, sincerely thanking him for everything. The Lord said that his bride, whom he had never seen in person, would come to Yen Jing one of these days, so the Lord should help him meet her. His Highness said that although he hated blind dates, he had to respect his parents' decision, so he would accept it. Lord Lu bowed to the young master with respect, saying that everything would be at the highest level. The Longhai region was famous for its wonderful vegetation. It was decorated with sakura growing in the area. Wang Yu and Master Long Tu arrived in the Longhui region. The young man followed the master with a calm step. There was a long-haired man standing in the palace. His back was turned and he looked calm. He was wearing a dark blue robe with a dark blue belt. The edges of the belt were golden in color. The cool-headed man heard the conversations of two people standing behind him. At first he didn't pay attention to them. Wang Yu told Master Long Tu that it must be Uncle Luan. He asked the old man if he wanted him to say hello to him. The older man told him that he was here at the right time. He suggested enjoying a good show first. The slightly wary young man looked at him, asking what he meant. The cool-blooded Uncle Luan grabbed the sharp steel spear. His grip was very strong. The man stood confidently on his feet, holding the steel spear firmly. It was extremely sharp and glittered in the sun. A small green leaf fell in front of his nose. The calm master examined him and was ready to strike. He grabbed the spear tighter in order to throw it with all his might over a long distance. Just a moment later, a sharp steel spear flew forward. His speed was incredible. Wang Yu watched the mesmerizing show on the sidelines, extremely surprised by the master's excellent shooting. Master Luan once again grasped the sharp spear to strike and impale the tip of a fallen leaf. His grip was indescribably strong, for a moment it even seemed as if he would bend the spear with his compression. Swinging, the deft master struck and managed to pin a small fallen leaf on the tip of the spear. He took a showy fighting stance to make an impression. His gaze was confident and serious. He had a long spear in his hand, but the tip with a fallen leaf was at quite a distance from his body. Wang Yu was extremely amazed by Master Luan's spectacular power. As he sweated, he called this technique strong. The young man said to himself that this silver spear probably weighed from 10 to 20 kilograms. The master clearly has a strong hand. The master made a sharp movement, taking a step forward. He was going to show the technique again. The young master confidently held the heavy silver spear in his hands. He was going to throw it. At the same moment, the young man threw a sharp silver spear. The birds in the area scattered in fright. Long Tu said that in ancient times, Longhai had flying generals, but now they have the god of the spear. Young Master Luan was flattered by this compliment. He said that now there really is a god of the spear. The silver spears were in a compartment specially designated for them. The young master owned several spears. The young master bowed down and paid respects to the old master Long Tu. He addressed him, calling him father. The old master smiled at the young man, saying that the reception was not bad, and his yuejia shooting was getting better. Wang Yu stood next to the master and was a little surprised. He asked if this was the shooting of the Yu family. Long Tu said that it was for sure that this clan had a chance and they obtained the Yu shooting technique, and in fact, they represent the real Yu sect. Wang Yu said to himself that the Yu family's shooting technique was created by the famous general, the Spear King. Young Master Luan asked his father if this was the young man he told him about earlier. The young man smiled at Uncle Long, introducing himself as Wang Yu Jr. Luan smiled at him. He asked the young man with a smile if he dared to challenge him and fight. Wang Yu was sweating with excitement. He asked if it was too early for a fight, since they had just met. Master Luan looked into his eyes sternly, asking if he didn't have the courage to take his hand and become the guardian dragon of China. The young man immediately became angry and asked him why he thought he was afraid to fight him. Through gritted teeth, the young man said that Luan Zhan had contracted a strange disease and lost a lot of strength, and although his strength is higher than that of a young man, he can master this role. The young man began to slowly move towards his opponent. He tried to act calm. The young man looked sternly at the enemy's head, taking a fighting stance. He was completely ready for battle. Luan Zhan smiled, saying that with such determination, the height he can reach is immeasurable. The master said that when he compares the young man with others, he will never be merciful. The young man should be prepared for this. Old Master Long Tu was stunned by Luan Zhan's words. He silently listened to their conversation. But at one point, he exclaimed that if he laid a finger on him, he must be prepared for the consequences. Beads of sweat ran down Wang Yu's face. He condescendingly told the master not to worry. Looking sternly at Uncle Luan, the young man asked him not to be merciful, since he did not like being let down. The spear god Luan Zhan smiled at the boy, saying that he really liked his courage. He agreed to his request. The master in a kimono stood confidently on his feet. He took a strong fighting stance, preparing to fight the guy. He was absolutely motionless, and his gaze was confident and intimidating. He himself tried to remain calm. At one moment, the professional master rushed from his spot, picking up stunning speed. He continued to run towards the enemy. The speed became faster and faster every second. Wang Yu was amazed because he did not expect such incredible speed of movement from the enemy. Master Luan Zhan clenched his fiery fist tightly, preparing to deliver a decisive blow to his opponent's torso. But the young man was not going to give up and was ready to fight to the end. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, blocking. When the master delivered his powerful blow, the young man managed to dodge the blow. He was very worried. Old Master Long Tu shouted at him to use his chi immediately. The wary young man had an epiphany at that moment. Enraged, he used chi. There were purple emanations around him, and his gaze was extremely terrifying. Master Luan Zhan warily wondered if the young man's powers were blocked by the natural power of the overlord. Wang Yu looked into his eyes intimidatingly. The pupils of his eyes disappeared for a while, and his teeth were clenched. He used chi and held in his hands a round sphere that had a charge of energy in it. the guy swung menacingly at the enemy. Luan Zhan was extremely surprised by the young man's excellent inner strength. He tried to control himself. But at one point, he smiled, telling the boy that he could not have this kind of power. At the last moment before striking, Master Zhan firmly grabbed the young man's wrist. Wang Yu was extremely wary, because it seemed to him that victory in the duel was already in his hands. He was amazed at the stunning strength of the master's hands, trying to understand why he couldn't move. The brown-eyed master smiled insidiously at him, looking intently into his eyes. The young man did not understand anything. Unexpectedly, the master decided to use a cunning trick. He moved the fingers of his right hand strangely. At that very moment, he grabbed the young man's trapeze, pressing firmly on it with his fingers. From the sharp pain, the young man made a sharp jerk back, since it was impossible to endure such a thing. Wang Yu gritted his teeth in pain and grabbed his shoulder to soothe the aching pain. A copious amount of sweat was running down his face. Suddenly he looked at the master extremely nervously. The insidious enemy struck him in the solar plexus area. The young man jumped in pain. At that very moment he spat out a large clot of blood. The enemy was not at all merciful to him. Master Luan Zhan was not going to stop, and decided to finish off the enemy. He took a sharp step forward. The young man could hardly stand on his feet. The merciless master looked at him sternly as he dealt the final blow. The young man was unable to stand on his feet. When he fell, he rested his palms on the ground so as not to hurt his head. A few seconds later he was completely lying on the asphalt, unable to move. The young man did not lie on the asphalt for long. He put in a lot of effort and managed to get up. The young man's cape was covered in dust. The young man lightly brushed the dust off his clothes, sneezing very loudly. A copious amount of dust got into his nose. He rose completely from the ground and brushed off his dusty jacket a little. His appearance was shabby. The defeated young man paid respects to the master. Admitting his defeat, he thanked Uncle Luan for his mercy. Wang Yu said that the master had not used the dark power from his stomach and back before. If he used it, the guy's insides would turn to mush. The master watched the defeated boy. The wrinkled hand of the old master touched his shoulder. Long Tu asked Luan Zhan how his student was. The master replied that he was good, but he had little experience in close combat. Laughing a little, the old master said that he could not be worse than the students he had chosen. Wang Yu said that although he did not study the technique with Zhang Ziwu, he learned the vital points with him, so technically he became the first disciple. These words alerted the eyes of old master Long Tu. He looked seriously at the boy. With some anger, he asked him to watch what he lets out of his mouth. A little excited, the young man asked him not to be angry. Master Long Tu almost flew up out of anger. He was angry at Zhang Ziwu, calling him a damn son. The young man's words reached Master Luan Zhang. He turned to look at him warily. With a smile, he asked if he understood correctly that the young man studied Chinese medicine and important points with Ziwu. The guy replied that it was. The long-haired master was interested and asked the guy how he was doing with Chinese medicine. Wang Yu scratched the back of his head a little shyly, answering that it was not bad since he was Zhang Ziwu's disciple after all. Master Luan was very interested in this topic, but at the same time his face remained serious. He asked the boy if all this was true. Wang told Uncle Long that he could not guarantee that he could help him diagnose his strange illness. The master, with a little relief, said that he understood this, but asked him to try to do it. He said to himself that a lot of doctors couldn't diagnose his illness, but Ziwu's skills were godlike. Although he is no longer alive, his student remains. Young medical specialist Wang Yu and martial arts master Luan Zhan went to the office. The master placed a white rag under his wrist and relaxed his hand. The young doctor was about to conduct an examination. He placed 2 fingers of his right hand on the master's wrist to try to diagnose his strange illness. Master Luan was very nervous because no one had ever been able to give him an accurate answer on this matter. With a serious face, young Dr. Wang Yu answered Uncle Long that he did not have a strange disease. But in bewilderment, the master asked him, "What is it in this case, if not a disease?" Master Long too looked at the doctor with the same incomprehension. Wang Yu began to think deeply about this matter. He said that Uncle Luan bowed. Old Divine Master Long too was stunned by the young expert's statement. He couldn't believe his ears. Stuttering with excitement, he asked how this kind of action could be possible. Isn't this a feudal superstition? The serious Wang Yu replied that the worship technique is not a feudal superstition, it actually exists, although they all do not believe in it. The doctor explained that hanging upside down is a witchcraft from South Asia. It can save people from death, but it can also harm people to death. Long Tu coughed into his fist and said that Zhang Ziwu accidentally caught this disease and his body functioned poorly afterward, but he could not find the reason. Master Luan told his father that he also thought there was a technique of hanging upside down. The father listened to him carefully. Old Master Long Tu nervously hit the table with his palm, screaming. He asked who did this to his son. In anger, he continued to scream, asking who the bastard was who dared to do this and what his intentions were. Luan answered his father in a calm tone that, given his high position, it was impossible to avoid such situations. Long Tu replied that his son was right, the person who holds the dragon feather must be as strong as a guardian, everyone thinks he has a lot of advantages. The old master added that this is why his son will always have a huge number of envious people. Master Luan asked the young medical specialist if he knew how to get rid of this hanging down. The young man said that although he was a doctor, he had no idea how to get rid of it, he can only pull out the caster. The old divine master became even more angry. Having learned about the caster, he hit the table again, but this time with his fist. Gritting his teeth in anger, he loudly declared that if this was the case, then he must immediately catch this spellcaster. Master Luan tried to remain calm, but at the same time he menacingly stated what would happen if he caught this spellcaster. His gaze was extremely stern, and he promised that he would destroy the caster, and he did not care who he was. The next day came, the weather was warm and sunny, the rays of the sun illuminated the palace of the Long family estate. Young medical specialist Wang Yu continued to devote himself entirely to training his inner strength. He collected the qi energy in his hand while sitting with his eyes closed in a meditation position. He was completely focused on training. Charming blonde Longing ate roasted sunflower seeds while watching the mesmerizing ritual. Her admiration for the young man knew no bounds, her eyes seemed to glow. Suddenly a miss came in a pink robe. She told the girl and Mr. Van that a guest wanted to meet them. The young man turned his serious gaze on her. The inner strength training was interrupted. With a smile on his face, the young man asked if this beautiful girl had come to visit him. The woman replied that he understood everything correctly, but the young man's joyful mood was interrupted by the blonde Ing, who stood behind. Sweat began to flow down the young man's face. She confidently put her hand on the guy's head, asking the woman if it was really that girl who came here again. Wang Yu burst into tears, standing with a black eye. He asked why he beat him, because that girl came herself. Blonde Longing displeasedly answered the guy that it was all because he called that girl beautiful. She gave him a stern look, wondering if her beating him was a problem. The young man with a large bruise under his right eye and tears on his face answered the sweet lady through tears that there was no problem. Meanwhile, the beautiful girl was waiting for the young man in the room where they could enjoy hot drinks and wait. The girl enjoyed the pleasant aroma of the hot drink. Pleasant steam came from the glass. Kaching Chin looked amazing. She wore tight pants and a loose white shirt that showed off her amazing shape. Kaching finally waited for the young master. She turned to Mr. Wang, saying that they had met again. The smiling gentleman asked the sweet lady not to call him Mr. Wang. He asked to be called simply Wang Yu. Such statements shocked the blonde Longing standing behind him. The young man understood that he would not be happy after this. The jealous blonde pinched his sweaty back hard, saying that he could risk flirting with Kaching. Dripping with sweat, Wang Yu wondered to himself, is this really called flirting? He called Ing crazy in her mind. Kaching Chin said that she came to invite him to a feast tonight. She said that the banquet will take place at 6 in the evening at the Yunlan Hotel. Through his teeth, understanding the consequences, Wang Yu smiled. He asked her not to worry, promising to appear at the party. He looked at the beautiful Kaching Chin coolly. There was absolutely no emotion in his eyes at that moment. The girl was very worried from this look. She said to herself that he was looking at her like that again. This guy has no manners at all. The young master told her again that even if she had nothing else to do, they dare not detain her. These words hurt the girl. Mr. Wang Yu smiled at the beauty, repeating once again that he would definitely come to the banquet in the evening. Busty Kaching clenched her fist behind her back in anger, wondering to herself, will he really drive her away again? She angrily told herself that this impudent person didn't even invite her to drink tea. and now he was also driving away a guest who had come from afar. The girl stood silently in place for some time, and this confused the young man. He asked with confusion, what was she waiting for? Kaching-chin could hardly restrain the outbursts of her anger at the young man. She clenched her teeth in anger, but controlled herself. Stomping her foot on the floor, she shouted goodbye to him. The girl decided not to tolerate such humiliation in her direction anymore. Her hair stood on end with anger, and she quickly began to walk away from the estate. The young man asked after her, why was she angry? The dissatisfied blonde longing asked the stupid boy to guess why the girl was so angry with him. She did the same and simply left the premises. Wang Yu looked after her, saying that women are hard to understand.